You're watching B.
Melissa Papatonis is joining us now, so we have one more commissioner that we need to get started.
1 minute to go.
All right. Think we're good to go. Katie, you all set with recording?
Recording in progress.
Recording.
All set.
Wonderful. All right, it is 7:01 on September 8th, 2022. My name is Peter Basserman. I am chairman of Branford's Inland Wetland Commission. We are having a regular meeting this evening via Zoom. Please mute your device if you are not speaking, which will help with any background noise, etc. during the meeting. BCTV is recording this evening. It's available on your public access TVs channels. Let's see. Anything else this evening? Any changes to the agenda we'll deal with? All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. We'll start with a roll call. Melissa Papatonis. Indicate by saying here.
Sorry, I can't unmute myself. Commissioner Papantone is present.
Melissa Finaro.
Commissioner Finaro present.
And Commissioner Begeman.
Commissioner Begeman present.
Commissioner Basserman present, so we do have a quorum. Let's see, any changes to the agenda, Jamie?
No recommended changes to the agenda at this time.
All right, staff, we have Jamie Frederick.
Here.
And Katie Blanchett.
Here.
Thank you. All right, we have 3 minutes for approval. The July 28th, 2022 special meeting minutes is the first one up. That is available in the Dropbox for commissioners and the public. Any motion to approve those minutes?
Commissioner Finaro, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from July 28th, 2022 special meeting minutes.
And is there a second? I'll second it. Any comments, changes to those minutes? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions? Aye. Any noes? Okay. Next up, August 11th, we have a regular meeting minute, 2022. Again, any motion to approve those minutes?
Commissioner Papantonis, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, we had a motion. Is there a second? Again, I'll move it on a second motion. Any further discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
I hear more. Any abstention?
I'll abstain, Begamon, Commissioner
Aye,
Begamon.
abstention. Anybody declining? Okay, last up, September 7th. We had a special meeting last night of a site walk, short and sweet. Motion to approve.
Commissioner Nufinaro, I'd like to make a motion to approve the site walk from September 7th, 2022.
And hopefully there's a second out there.
Commissioner Papantonis, second.
Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any abstentions? Any declines? Great. Okay, to the meat of the meeting. Applications for receipt. Inland Wetland 220901, 125 Thimble Island Road, a new single-family residence. And for the applicant, we have who?
Good evening,
Mr.
Jim Cuddy,
Crisco.
Crisco Engineering. 420 East Main Street here in Branford, representing Milano's. We were in a few months ago with a lot split for this, and we had a site walk, and we got the lot approved. We are now back with basically the same plan, but with an actual house plan. I will share the screen just to kind of, I'm trying to be quick because I know this is for receipt. So this is the two lots. One is here with the existing house, and then this was the other one with the driveway through the easement along the railroad property. House basically in the same location. We actually moved it east slightly because there's a deck and we had to stay 25 feet off of that tidal wetland. But basically in the same location, same septic system location. And the same program with the utility, the water and the electric going through that high ground berm area that is actually between the two inland wetland and the tidal wetland that we walked when we were out there. So now they have a house plan. This is looking from the water side, and this is looking from the west, I believe. But as you can see, they're kind of have designed it to built into that slope that's there. This would be from the driveway side, and then from the other side, coming down again, built into the slope. I think that's all I'll say about that right now, unless there's any specific questions.
Mr. Crisco, I have one, Commissioner Basserman. How are we dealing with the rain runoff?
So we'll have to detail that a little for you, but because there's so much rock around here, we're gonna be getting creative with sort of creating some plunge pool in the rock area. There's not really the area that we have for soil really is being used for septic system, and we can't inundate that. But when we come back, we'll have it detailed out for you. We'll have
Thank
something.
Mr. Preddy, can you also just touch on, I think since it looks like where lot 2 is called out, I believe when it went to planning and zoning that there was conveyance of some property for open space or something like that.
Yeah, yes, Jim Preddy again. So what happened at planning and zoning is rather than have fee in lieu of open space, they decided to take, because this is town property on this side, they decided they wanted property. So this triangular area is going to be deeded to the town. That was part of the subdivision. In addition to that, there was a conservation easement put on the tidal wetland area to further protect that in the future. But those were the two conditions of the, aside from the fact that we need to go back with a special exception application, those were the conditions from the planning and zoning.
Any other
This-
questions from the commission for Mr. Preddy?
This Commissioner Papantonis says this came up with another property. The conservation easement will be held by whom?
I believe it's to the town.
Okay,
The easement is in favor of the town, of Branford.
just making sure.
Jamie, you all set with questions at this point?
Yeah, I'll take a closer look at the site plans and reach out if I have any additional questions that weren't raised at the meeting. I haven't had a chance to really look at it too much yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, inland wetland 220902, 36 Ramblewood Drive. This is for an in-ground pool.
Correct. Edwin Nichols here, the owner. Worked with Jamie, and I don't have the capability to share the drawings, but putting an in-ground pool, frankly, there was one there many years ago in almost the same spot, slightly different orientation. But I've worked with Jamie to get the drawings and the application in.
Jamie, this is Commissioner Bassman, can you share that with the screen?
Yes, 1 minute. All right. I'll actually backtrack real quick and just go to a GIS map. So this is kind of zoomed in, you don't see the whole property in this subject GIS map, but this is the property, 36 Ramblewood, the house, the driveway, shed proposed to be removed as part of the project. And then we have offsite wetlands delineated to the north, and then there appears to be, based on the information on our GIS, a watercourse that runs through the property. So I did go out there to take a look at the site conditions with the property owner relative to the proposed project. They're looking to put an in-ground pool approximately in this location here, particularly as it relates to level of application materials required. So I will now jump over to the site plan. Again, here you can see the house and the driveway. This is the proposed pool area. The shed you could see in the aerial GIS to be removed. There is a bit of a landscape area right here that they're looking to keep some of it and I think relocate some of the plantings. And then there's a large existing beech tree that they're proposing to keep. It is a flat site, and the beech tree is a high point between the proposed activity and the wetland resources, which are located in the northwest corner of the site. I think that this, based off of past practice, is something that can be reviewed administratively with the assumption of where I believe the limits of the wetland to be. I did not do any field testing. I'm not a soil scientist, but I do think that the wetland limits are pretty close to where the watercourse area would be. I'll jump over and show some pictures of the site. So this is the house and the driveway and that landscaped area I was talking about. They're looking to access for the pool off of the driveway through here. Again, picture of that landscaped area. And then the landscaped area is just off the picture to the left. This is the shed they're looking to remove. This is the rock outcrop area near the backside of where they're proposing to put the patio. And you can just barely see the beech tree off of the edge here too that they're looking to keep. So you can kind of see in the picture that this area is higher than where they're looking to put the pool. Again, a picture of the beech tree. And then in the back at the edge of the lawn is where I believe the wetland area is. This is looking, if you look very closely in this photo, you can see a little bit of a rock wall with a gap in it. And that's where I believe the wetland from the north property continues on to the subject property. And then kind of looking, I think the wetland limits is approximately in this area here, but I didn't do any test bits or anything. But it didn't look like the lawn was likely wetland area. And then looking here, you can see the wetland area / water course going towards the street, looking south, and it is piped at that point. So the question I have for the commission is, are you okay with this being approved or reviewed administratively? And are you okay with waiving the wetland delineation, or would you like to see the wetland delineation to confirm the location of any on-site wetlands? And then if it aligns with where I believe it to be, that it would be okay for agent review? Or do you think that a formal site plan and a formal wetland delineation should be submitted as part of the application?
Commissioner Basserman, first of all, the old pool, was it a above ground or in-ground pool?
It was an in-ground pool. It was roughly a 90-degree orientation to that.
Yeah, no, I understand. So when they eliminated the pool, what was they filled it?
They filled it, they pushed the existing concrete sidewalk patio, whatever it was, into the hole. So we will have that trucked out. But yes, it was filled in.
Gotcha. And the distance between the, what direction is this? The closest point from the pool to the wetland is how far, Jamie?
So the closest point from the proposed activity, which would actually be the patio, to the off-site wetlands, because that's the only thing I have a delineation for, is
Right.
about 65 feet, based off of the drawing that was submitted and the off-site wetlands. I do not know relative to the on-site wetlands. I would say about the same would be my
Yeah.
best estimate, but I don't know without the wetland delineation.
And if you were to guess, this is Commissioner Bassford, if you were to guess the difference in height between the wetland delineation, as best we can figure it, and the pool, any guess on that height?
I really could not honestly give a good guess.
It's-
I think it's probably very similar elevations, but there's bit of a mounded area in between the two.
But
Yeah, I mean, I would guess the proposed site is 1 to 2 feet higher, but it's pretty darn flat.
Any other questions for the commission?
So is the commission okay with this being done administratively, and or does the commission think I should have them do a wetland delineation and then make a decision, a judgment call based off of that wetland delineation?
My own personal feeling, one commissioner view would be, I think we don't need to do that delineation, given the distance and given the topography that's involved.
Yeah, and the applicant also said that they're not going to be stockpiling any material on site. It will be removed as they're excavating, and then when they bring in the backfill, it will be when they're ready to backfill. So I think based with that information, it would be consistent.
One other question for the homeowner. When you take out that concrete, I assume the fill that goes in there is also going off-site.
The fill that's going to be excavated will go off-site.
Yeah, right, okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm okay administratively, Jamie. Anybody feel differently about that?
No.
Anybody want to offer another argument as to why administrative makes sense here?
Commissioner Papantonis, it makes sense to me.
All right. So I'll follow up with the property owner for any additional information I may need and process that.
Great. Good luck.
Thank you.
Let's see. Next up, we have the applications for review in the wetland 220704, 819, 841 East Main Street, proposed construction of 36,560 square foot medical research and development building with some site improvements. This is the site that we had a lovely walk the other night. Any updated information, Jamie, on this?
So Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, I have sent the applicant some comments. I know the town engineer has sent some comments, and that they've received some questions from the fire department, prompted by me asking the fire department if there was any concerns regarding access that might result in site plan changes. It's my understanding that they are looking to revise the plans to address those comments, but they were also hoping to get comments from planning and zoning to make a revision that addresses all the immediately relevant department comments. And I did receive this afternoon a plan that I think the applicant plans on displaying and reviewing with the commission.
So do we have additional comments from the applicant this evening?
Yes, Commissioner, easy for me to say. Commissioner Basserman, how are you? This is Chris Gagnon from BL Companies, professional engineer here in Connecticut, 355 Research Parkway. I have with me Jeff Dewey, another professional engineer on our team, the lead designer for this project and your host at the Wetlands Walk last night. And also with us is Attorney Shansky. She is here to help out with any of the legal items. But this will mostly be a Jeff Dewey show for the evening. If you guys recall, I gave a, I would say fairly comprehensive rundown of the site and the activities associated with that about a week ago. Oh, good, Jeff is sharing his screen. Not a week ago, a month ago. Wow, my time is off. About a month ago. And after that discussion, you guys decided to schedule the site walk. In the meantime, we did receive a couple of comments from the town, and in mine and Jeff's humble opinion, the comments would have minimal to zero impact to this portion of the application, except for one comment related to the slope of the grades that Jeff will get into in a second, which is the exhibit that we sent over to Jamie. And the other important comment that I think we just wanted to discuss with you today was the fact that the town engineer and the town engineer did not want to see any truck traffic coming up to the property using Goldsmith Road. I think all of you who went on the site walk yesterday would probably agree that that is not the best plan of action. So the one potential site plan revision that we have in front of us that would make any sort of consequential change to the site plan is that the truck traffic will be coming in off of Route 1. So what does that change to the plans, you may ask? Well, we're going to make sure we have the appropriate pavement section to handle the truck traffic. And then which is shown by the that dotted hatch there, the heavy duty pavement that we have. And then the other change, Jeff, you just pan up to show the driveway at there. So right now we are showing a 30-foot wide drive, no, down to Goldsmith. I'm sorry, that was not articulated properly. We're showing a 30-foot width drive to accommodate the trucks there. If that just becomes a vehicle access, that width can be reduced to 24 feet. And we would reduce it on the side adjacent to the wetlands. So it would just pull everything away from there. So if that change gets implemented, it's just a, it just betters the situation as far as you folks were concerned. So I just wanted to discuss those two items. As I said, we went through this project pretty thoroughly during the acceptance hearing, but I'd be more than happy to give an additional rundown, but I also don't want to repeat myself with information that you folks are already aware of. If there's new commission members here today, I'd be happy to do that. But Commissioner Basserman, I was gonna just take your lead there on how detailed of a site plan review you wanted us to get into at this exact moment.
Commissioner Vassman, I guess before we proceed with that, I'm a little confused. I thought the comment you started with was truck traffic off of Goldsmith was not a good idea, and we were going to do that access off Route 1, and yet we talked about a 30-foot driveway off Goldsmith. So I'm sure I misunderstood what you were trying to get across, Mr. Gannon.
Of course. So originally, we have proposed the truck traffic off of Goldsmith. We all agree, the applicant agrees, the town agrees, that's not a good idea. To accommodate the truck traffic, we're proposing a 30-foot wide driveway at this exact moment. However, since we are no longer going to be having truck traffic using this entrance could get reduced to a 24-foot wide entrance with the final plan set, which in my opinion would be a benefit in terms of how close we are to the resource area with this activity. So all I'm saying is that if the trucks don't use that access, it can be a skinnier driveway than originally proposed.
And so what I guess my ignorance is that when you reduce it from 30 to 24 feet, that precludes trucks?
It doesn't preclude, I understand what you're saying. The width of the driveway is not necessarily what prohibits the trucks from using it, but if we did have trucks using it, the 30-foot wide driveway helps make it work. It will be signage and education of the delivery folks that indicate how the truck should enter the site. But I understand what you're saying. The 24-foot wide, 30-foot wide is necessary if trucks were using it. 24-foot wide doesn't necessarily preclude the trucks from using it, but if only passenger vehicles are using it, you only need a 24-foot wide width.
Thank you for the clarification. I guess given the fact that you said that the changes that were already discussed had minimal impact, the driveway being the exception to that, everything else you're telling me is the same as what was presented the last time you were here?
No, we have one more change that I'll have Jeff, if you can show up the exhibit plan. So at the original design, I mistakenly laid out the site using a 2-to-1 side slope coming off the grades. We did work with the geotechnical engineer. They were okay with quote unquote certifying that 2-to-1, but we understand that that's not what the town would like to see, the town engineer, or I think your commission. So we would like to revise that to a 3-to-1 slope to comply with that part of the regulations. And in revising to a 3-to-1 slope, what this does is it adds about 1,828 square feet of activities within the upland review area. So that's the other change based on the review comments that we got. So I just wanted, that was the second thing on my list to discuss.
Commissioner Bassman, did that change any of the hydrological factors?
No, sir. It had no changes to the impervious area or any of the other calculations. It's just taking a 2-to-1 slope. We had to chase it just a couple feet further by making it a 3-to-1, if you know what I mean by chasing it down the hill.
Oh, okay, can you, Commissioner Bassman, can you put back the screen that you had prior to this one? Okay, so there's no, is that area in the sloped section that you're just talking about, between that and the building, is that just asphalt?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so how do we handle the rain runoff? Is that not just sheet flow?
So the slope itself, the graded slope from the curb line. So Jeff, if you run down the curb line, so that's the curb line right there that Jeff is following.
Yeah.
To the left or north of his hand is that is, so those arrows are pointing at the curb line. To the left of that is the asphalt for the to get access to the loading area. That is an impervious area. Right. To the right of it with the grades is a vegetated slope protected by Jeff, do we have a erosion control blanket on that slope? So it's a vegetated slope that would drain directly to the wetlands, and any of the impervious area is collected in the catch basins and pipes that you can see, sent to pre-treatment and then an underground chamber, and then is discharged right by the driveway right there. So any of the vegetated areas, they drain directly to the wetland. Any of the paved areas are routed through our stormwater management system with the pre-treatment, the underground detention, and then it is discharged. The clean runoff is discharged at that location.
Okay.
Just to the right of the driveway.
I see the catch basin. I don't know, label, like, boy, I can't read the damn writing. The catch basin at the corner of the building, I see that one. Yep, right there. If you go to the right and up a little, what's the slope there on the asphalt? Does that drain down to the bottom of the page, or
that? Yeah, that Jeff, if you just drag that bottom arrow to point to that catch basin right there.
Gotcha.
You got the highlight. So there's a structure right there in the gutter line. There it is. And the runoff from the loading area, it is pitched towards that catch basin. So it's running from the top of the page towards the bottom of the page. So the loading dock area is collected in that catch basin right there.
Thank you much.
So those were really the two changes that we understood based on comments from the town. So they, in my opinion, were pretty minor, but I don't want to qualify it in any of yours opinion. And I was not on the site walk. I was at another hearing last night, but Jeff went on the site walk. So I don't know, Jeff, if there's any sort of summary or any discussion you and the commissioners would like to have about the site walk. Now's the time, but other than that, I don't have anything else new to present. So happy to have you guys discuss the site walk if any questions came out of that, or any other questions from the commissioners.
I'm sure everybody can hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, good evening. My name is Jeff Dewey. I'm with BL Companies. I'm a licensed professional engineer in Connecticut. As you remember, we walked down to look at this wetland area here. For the most part, we were right around this area near the SNET utility pole looking in. The area was dry enough for us to walk in on and walk around. I took a little walk through there. The URA was pretty densely overgrown, difficult to get to, so none of us really went too far, and there really didn't seem a point in going too far in. We could see clear enough from where we were. We apologize on the design team. We were hoping Our soil scientist, Rich Snarsky, was going to be available tonight. Unfortunately, he was booked in Waterford, and so he was not able to make it this evening, but I did have the opportunity to talk with him this afternoon and explain what we saw on site. And when I told him it was dry enough for us to go walk in on it, he was very surprised. He expected that wetland to hold water longer, especially after the rain events that we got the other day. So for him, what this means that there's not a lot of hydric dependent species involved in this wetland. Certainly if it dries out that fast, then the wetland species would not be able to survive there for very long. So in his report, this would further decrease the actual functions and values of this wetland, because he had assumed it would hold water for some of the hydric species. As far as invasives, he said there's very few invasives in the URA. There are some, but it's not too bad. He wouldn't recommend any control or mitigation for the invasives, but he also said if the commission felt it appropriate, certainly we'd be more than happy to put an invasive species control plan in order and present it to you. And basically what Rich was telling me is there were so few out there, it would basically amount to him walking around there and spraying the individual plants, because there was only a handful of them. And after we chatted a little bit about the stormwater management system, and as the commission can see here on the plan, and I know being not engineers, it's not always easy to read, so I'll just take a minute to explain that. This here is a subsurface infiltration detention system. So it's designed so the stormwater gets in here, fills these chambers, and then larger storm events will flow out through here, but the smaller, more common storm events will infiltrate into the soil, get in maybe to the groundwater table, maybe stay above the groundwater table, and actually help feed this wetland area with groundwater. As far as our detention basin over here, due to some of the soil testing, we found that the infiltration rate was really slow. So we designed this with an underdrain system. And I apologize if you can't read this. So there's an underdrain system that will connect to the outlet control structure and then discharge over here. But the underdrain system basically only works for water that sits in the bottom of the basin. So there will also be some infiltration through the sidewalls of the basin that will migrate through the soils and also get to this wetland in the long term. But basically we designed an underdrain system for safety, as there's a DEP requirement to have that basin drain within 72 hours, just in case there's a second significant storm event in line after the first one. This basin will be dry enough to be able to handle the second storm event. And that said, certainly the immediate discharge points here and here will certainly direct water into this wetland area, which will further help feed the hydric conditions of the wetlands. I noticed, well, I didn't notice, but at a site walk, I was asked what our total activity area was for the site. So I wanted to report to you this evening that the activity area as defined by the limited disturbance line here, the LOD, the dark line, which actually includes this, which is not site area, but it's close enough. I mean, that's a small area. The activity area total is 4.4 acres. And what that amounts to is roughly about 64% of the site area that is in the town of Branford. It's substantially less. It's 47% of the total parcel, but we're here in Branford, so we're talking about how much of the Branford parcel it takes. And as I mentioned, roughly 64% of the site is within our activity limits. Certainly, it's like this area here will just be a grassed area. It's not all impervious areas. We're proposing for impervious areas, 67,400 square feet of pavement and parking lot area. The building obviously is 36,560 square feet. And then we have another 7,900 square feet of miscellaneous sidewalks, areas, and a patio area here. So our total impervious area for the site comes out to be about 112,000 square feet, or around 2.6 acres. Or in another way to put it, and I know I'm going with too many numbers, so I'll stop here, is 37.3% of the Branford parcel, not the total parcel. So roughly 37% of the site will be impervious areas. Our stormwater management system, the subsurface system here, our detention basin here, the incorporation of hydrodynamic separators. Let me just find a call out so you know I'm not kidding. Is right here. I apologize. That would be a Vortechnic device. So it's designed to provide water quality treatment prior to going into the basin. We have a sediment forebay sized as per DEP requirements. Even though we also have water quality treated here, we're also incorporating a sediment forebay just in case there's additional sediments that are not directed into the Vortechnics and get into the basin. And then certainly the basin is designed to hold the water quality volume prior to discharge. Again, we have a slow infiltration rate, so we incorporated an under drain system, and the discharge point is proposed to be right here. And we show a riprap scour hole to prevent any erosive discharge rates. For informational purposes with regard to the two detention systems, the average reduction in the peak runoff for the 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storm events that we analyzed, the average reduction in peak flow is 8.5%. So we are reducing the peak rate of runoff for all the storms that we assessed.
Can I ask a question regarding that? If you didn't do the average, this is Commissioner Basserman, you didn't do the average and you looked at the 50 and 100-year storm, what is that percentage for those?
So we don't include the 50-year in the
That's all right. That's all right.
but you can see, so for the 100-year, we have a 9% reduction from 27.7 to 25.2. And this analysis, this is overall, this is for the entire site.
Mm-hmm. Jamie, I'm assuming, this is Commissioner Basserman, I'm assuming with the structures that are on the site to handle, that sizable impervious surface, that we've looked at the hydrology numbers that are okay with the plan?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I did have town engineer take a look at the plans in the stormwater report. I don't know how much he dived into the actual calculations, but
Right.
he took a look at the summaries and some of the information, and he was okay with the information.
Okay.
One question I did have though is I do see that the peak flows were provided, existing and proposed in a chart. And I do see also on this page, it does mention reduction in peak discharge rates and volume. Was total volume leaving the site calculated pre and post? Existing and proposed, I guess.
Yes, it is. And that is a typo. We are not
I'm in a
decreasing.
meeting. Can you call
We're not
on?
decreasing the volume, and I apologize for that. We are only decreasing the peak rate. We have minor increases in the overall volume. But here again, the volume of these storm events are over a 24-hour period. The critical design aspect is the peak flow. This is what causes the flooding downstream and associated issues with development. The overall volume is over the 24-hour period. There will be an increase. And in speaking with Rich Snarsky, on this, and especially since he saw that the wetland, or understood that I explained to him how the wetland area was dry today. He had no issues at all with having an increase in volume. If anything, it would be a benefit to the wetland, is what he had told me. And again, I apologize that he wasn't available to be here this evening and say so himself.
Thanks, Jeff. That was a good summary of the stormwater activity and good responding to the couple of questions that were raised at the site walk. So with that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that the commissioners may have, but I think that just about sums up our presentation for you folks.
This is Commissioner Bassman. I had one additional question, I guess, last night at the site walk, given the size of the area that we're talking about, my understanding is that there was not a tree survey done for this site.
No, sir.
Is that something that we can entertain quickly to make sure that if there are some sizable trees, that we understand what's going to happen to them, and if there's some, specialty trees that may help to preserve, it would be nice to know that before the bulldozers hit.
Understood, sir. What is the timing? What is your desired timing for that? Is that a wetland commission timing? Is that a condition of approval timing, planning and zoning timing? What is your feeling there?
From my standpoint, it would be a condition of approval for the wetland application permit.
Happy to comply with that.
Thank you.
Just so the Inland Wetland Commission knows, the Planning and Zoning Commission, I believe, does have a requirement. I don't know if it always triggers or if it's only upon request, but I believe that they do require a significant tree survey of trees that are, I think, I can't remember what the threshold size is, but over a certain size, so that any trees for saving can be marked versus removal. So that way everyone's on the same page. So I do think that's likely something that'll get addressed at the planning and zoning side of things. Unless there's any particular concerns regarding trees in this upland review area, then I don't. I think if the commission thinks it's significant to the review of the application, that it should be done as part of the application review process. But if it's not really going to change the commission's take on the site plan activities, then it's not.
Commissioner Basserman, to the extent that it's a common outcome of a P&Z approval, I don't need to have it done for the wetland permit here.
I mean, I could draft up some language just regarding any significant trees within, a certain distance of the limit of disturbance, and making sure that they have adequate tree protection, so that they're not impacted during the activity if possible.
Yeah, I'm okay, Jamie.
Okay.
Any other comments from the commission on his application? Is there any document that you have, Jamie, for us to review?
I do not have a document prepared because I am looking for a couple of modifications to the site plan. And it's my understanding that they're looking to make those some modifications. So I think it's important that the commission review all those changes. In addition to the items that were discussed this evening, that I had a little bit of confusion regarding a couple minor grading points. And I also wanted to see more information on the erosion controls / narrative regarding the temporary activity in the roadway for the utility connections, given that that's very close to an off-site wetland area across the street. So they're pretty minor things, but I think those things should be addressed. Also, I still need to connect with the applicant on the fee. I think that they're owed a refund. However, they should also recalculate the fee with any additional disturbance based off of the additional activity associated with any grading changes. So I'm not sure how that will calculate out. But
So we want to continue this.
I would suggest continuing the item to the next meeting, yes. And the next meeting
Given the comments from wetland staff, any commissioner feel differently? Okay. So it looks like we've got still some material to come in. We'll review that at our next regularly scheduled meeting, which would be
October 13th.
October 13th. Thank you, B&L, for your presentation this evening.
Yep, thank you, everyone. Those seem like pretty easy things that we'll be able to work with Jamie over the next couple of weeks, and we'll have a real quick rundown in October. Thank you very much for your time.
Great. Next up, Inland Wetland 220705, 175 Cherry Hill Road, 11 lot subdivision, includes houses, driveway, stormwater management, and the roadway.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Christopher Giuliano. I'm a licensed land surveyor and professional engineer with the firm of Giuliano Associates. I maintain an office at 405 Main Street in Yalesville, Connecticut. At last month's meeting, I gave you a pretty brief rundown of the proposed project. I'm going to go through that in just a tiny bit more detail because I don't want to take up too much of your time. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and run through the 3 drawings that I want to talk about. So the first sheet is our property and topographic survey. So for orientation purposes, north is to the right of the page, south the left, west the top, and east the bottom. Cherry Hill Road is up in the southwest corner in this location here. And then Autumn Ridge is along the northeast border and located in this part of the page. So the property is 12.4 acres, and it is located to the northeast of the terminus of the paved portion of Cherry Hill Road, which is right here at this location. The remaining portion of Cherry Hill Road, which continues beyond our property, is unpaved and inaccessible. The property also has access to Autumn Ridge Road through a 50-foot right-of-way that was deeded to the town as part of the road system for the Autumn Ridge Road subdivision. We will be using that as part of our plan, and I'll get into that in a little bit more detail. But the property slopes from the rear of the Autumn Ridge Road lots. Basically, the high point is right around these lots, which is 16, 18, and 20 Autumn Ridge. And it basically slopes to the west towards the unimproved portion of Cherry Hill Road and property owned by the Regional Water Authority. And it also slopes to the south, which is over here to one of our abutting neighbors. There are no wetlands on the property, but we do have 3 offsite wetland areas associated with some ponds. We have one right here, the second, and the third. So they're on 2 of our abutting properties. But with the proximity to the boundary, we are impacted with the 100-foot upland review area, which is located right here. So moving on to our proposed subdivision, and what I did just for hopefully clarity's sake for the commission is I took our actual plan that you have in the packet. I added a little bit of color. Basically, I highlighted the wetlands in green and our upland review area in green, just so it would pop and you'd be able to see it clear. And then our proposed open spaces in yellow for this plan. And these are our 11 lots. So basically what we're doing is we are extending Cherry Hill Road up through the subdivision and connecting into Autumn Ridge. So we have a through road. And if many of you remember, this application or this property came before you last year. A little bit different configuration. We had a cul-de-sac which terminated roughly in this location. So we only had the access off of Autumn Ridge, but had an emergency access down to Cherry Hill Road. And I believe, as I explained to the commission last month, When we went to planning and zoning last year, beginning of this year, we got a little bit of pushback, a little bit of negative comments about not providing that through road. And that's why we're actually back here this time with this connection. With respect to the actual lots, there are 11. 9 of them are what Branford considers a standard lot, meaning it has the legal road frontage that's required. And then we have 2 interior lots. So, as I said, 9 standard lots, and then the 2 interior lots, which are located the furthest away from the existing wetlands to the east. The lots will be served by municipal water, municipal sewer. There'll be underground electric, underground gas, and then of course we'll have a municipal stormwater system to handle the water runoff. The next drawing gets into a little bit more detail. And again, what I've done is I've taken our 2 site development plans, which we split within the set. I've just kind of combined them so you could see it as a whole. And I've also added some additional color to the proposed houses, the roads, the driveways, and even the utilities are in color. Just again, to make it a little bit easier for the commission to discern some of the elements. One of the design aspects that I talked about last month, and I'll go over again, is that lots 7 through 11, although they do butt up against the upland review area located here, we've taken great care to keep all the grading and impacts outside of that upland review area. We also have added language to the maps and the plans stating that these individual lots must come back to this commission for individual site plan approval for when the developer or builder comes up with the exact, the actual house when the lot's ready to be sold. So that way you'll get another look at it to ensure that we're proposing, someone doesn't just come in and basically intrude or infringe upon that upland review area. Third thing is we're also adding language to all the deeds for lots 7 through 11, so that any potential home buyer, house builder knows that they do have an encumbrance on the property with respect to an upland review area, and basically to give them warning that before any improvements or activities are contemplated, that they should contact the town, because they'll most likely have to come back before the Inland Wetland Agency for any type of approval. With respect to stormwater, we are collecting the stormwater into municipal drainage systems. So that means the runoff from the roadways and the runoff from all of the standard lots will be collected and then piped through storm drainage system and discharged into our detention basin, which is located here on lot 7. The 2 rear lots, because of how far back they are from the road and how the grade drops off, we're unable to get the roof runoff from those 2 houses into this basin. So what we'll be doing is collecting the roof runoff and putting it into individual underground galley systems for those 2 lots. So basically we're catching 100% of the runoff from the impervious surfaces, and it's either going into the detention basin or it's staying on site for those 2 rear lots. And it's all going to be pre-treated with a hydrodynamic separator, which is located right in this area, and discharged into the basin. Now, the basin is designed to detain stormwater, with the major outflow being infiltration. We do have an emergency spillway. However, we're not utilizing it for any storm up to and including the 100-year event. So our primary discharge, our primary way of getting the stormwater off the property is through infiltration. Basically, we drain our detention basin in 22 hours, which is about two times faster, actually 3 times, one third of the actual required time specified by DOT. And as you heard in the last presentation, DOT wants a basin drained within 72 hours. We're doing it in under 24. So, and our infiltration rate is not very high. We're just able to control the stormwater. We have a nice large basin, so we're able to get that water. And at any time, I don't think we have over 2 feet of water in the basin. Additionally, with respect to the stormwater report that was submitted, if you look at the summary, that is the first few pages, we are reducing all peak runoffs for all storms from the 1 year up to the 100-year event. I looked earlier today and our percent reduction for all storms is approximately 34%. And because we were able to hold the water on site and infiltrate it, that also decreases the volume of storm water. So we're not actually shedding, we're not just detaining water on site and then shedding it off, any kind of increased volume. We're actually holding that volume on site. So we're actually able to meet both the requirement of peak runoff and the concern over volumes.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Question. Is the difference between what we're looking at here on this screen and what we had previously? Previously, there was only one access point. The road didn't go all the way through?
The prior application that this commission approved, I believe it was last November, December, but I could be wrong on the date. Yes, there was one main access off of Autumn Ridge, and it came down to a cul-de-sac, but we had an emergency access that went down to Cherry Hill. So for emergency purposes, we had two means of ingress and egress. But the main way in for any of the residents would have been off of Autumn Ridge Road. And
at that application that we looked at previously, did we have houses indicated on that plan?
Yes. Oh, yes. We had a site development plan, full site development plan with houses, grading, driveways, and drainage. In fact, in that previous plan, we had a second basin that was located up in this area. But with the reconfiguration and redesigning it, instead of pushing some of the stormwater to the west, I just chose to keep it all in one place because the majority of the runoff is going to that southwesterly corner of the property anyway.
Right. Did the elimination of the cul-de-sac change the location of the houses 8, 9, 10, and 11?
Yes, yes. The houses in the previous application, we actually had a band of open space behind these lots. So we had two sections of open space, one on the west side and one on the east side, if you recall. But because of having to eliminate the cul-de-sac and the required geometry of the subdivision regulations for proposed roads, we had no alternative but to kind of push this down closer to the offsite wetlands. And that's why when I started this presentation, and as I explained last month, we did our utmost to, even though we were getting closer with the actual houses and the development of yards, we made sure to keep all proposed grading and activities outside your upland review area. That's also why we agreed to additional language, both on the plans and to be put on the deeds. So we stayed out of that upland review area. We wanted the least amount of impact on the wetlands.
Okay, Commissioner Basserman again. What is the upland review area consists of in terms of vegetation, etc.?
Okay. Right now, well, as of today, there is a line of vegetation that runs sort of along the property line, might jut out in places, 30 to 50 feet. Some places is probably only about 10 feet. And then this area in here is right now, because it probably hasn't been mowed because no one lives on the property, it's probably, scrub growth, but for the most part, it's grasses, scrub growth, but no real trees or hardy vegetation. So, and we're not cutting into that tree line. We're leaving the existing tree line along these lots intact, and there'll just be grass here within the upland review area.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Jamie, how confident are we that a 100-foot boundary there is, an accurate depiction of the wetland?
So Jamie Frederick, in the wetland agent, the information that they have is based off of, I believe, the information available from the original Autumn Ridge subdivision. it's an offsite wetland, so they're not required to do a new wetland delineation. So it's the best representation we could really ask for. I think it's fairly accurate. I think the pond shapes are slightly different than what's actually out in the field, but this is the best information available for them to use and depict on their site plan. There are 2 additional offsite wetland areas. There's one on the east side of Autumn Ridge. So if you're coming out of the proposed development and turning right onto Autumn Ridge Road, there would be a wetland on the left-hand side. They are a little bit over 100 feet away from that. And they are proposing inlet protection in the catch basins on Autumn Ridge Road and an anti-tracking pad entering Autumn Ridge Road. And then there's another offsite wetland area that was identified by the soil scientist to the west of the subject site. It's about, if I remember correctly, 95 feet away from the, I think it's lot 5, the rear lot on the south side. It's about 95 feet away from there. So, I mean, there'd be like maybe a 5-foot upland review area in that corner, possibly, but that offsite wetland was not delineated, so I don't know where it is. Assuming it was right at the property line, it'd be a 5-foot upland review area, so there might not be any. And then the other thing I wanted to point out that I don't think was mentioned is they have added signs to mark the limits of the properties relative to the open space property to help hopefully keep everyone aware of where their property lines are and prevent any encroachment, particularly as it might relate to that steep slope and any destabilization that might impact that offsite wetland. So not entirely sure if I answered your question.
Well, yes and no, I guess. Given the fact that, the elimination of that cul-de-sac, the road that now goes through, et cetera, so forth. I know even though we have looked at this site previously, that's a substantial change. And I'm wondering whether, given also a number of these houses are very close to the upland review area, there's work to be done there. You pointed out some additional offsite wetland. I'm not so concerned about the one near 5 or 6, but the one near the where the road a little bit. I'm wondering if a site walk would be germane before we move forward on this application.
That is up to the commission. I know that some of the commissioners were out on this site about a year ago. We did do a site walk for the original application.
Jamie, if I can interrupt you, and I apologize. At the last meeting, I believe this was mentioned, you had also mentioned, Jamie had mentioned possibly doing a site walk, and the commission wasn't interested because you had seen an application prior. And so I guess I'm a little.
At the last meeting, it was brought up and it was discussed that there was previously a site walk, and the commission decided to just do a site walk for the previous application for East Main Street. So that assessment was made at the last meeting.
This is Commissioner Papantonis. I was at the previous site walk, but this plan is very different and the commission is very different than it was last year. So I would be amenable to walking it again if that's the desire of the other commissioners.
I guess it's Commissioner Bassman. I guess if the commissioners that were not on the prior site walk feel comfortable enough with the information that was presented this evening, as well as last month when this was discussed, I guess I can go along with that. If in fact, however, given the nature of what was presented, you feel a site walk would be important for you to make a decision, then we ought to move in that direction.
Commissioner Begeman, I was on the sidewalk a year ago. I do not feel the need to go again.
Commissioner Finaro.
I'm okay with hearing from the commissioners who have been on the site walk. in going on it.
Okay. Commission has spoken, no sidewalk.
Thank you.
I do have a question though. It's Commissioner Papantonis. So as I recall, when this came before the commission before, there was a question about the property to the west that you've delineated in yellow, because that's very close to the water company property, right? And there's a slope there.
Yes.
So, and my recollection is that you weren't clear at the time what exactly we're going to do with that property. So what are the current plans for that portion of the lot or the property?
That portion of the lot is just about a little over 28%. And that is what we're designating, our designated open space. It is our intention to donate that open space to the Regional Water Authority. And the reason for that is A, they own this other piece right here to our immediate west. Second reason is with us kind of extending Cherry Hill Road up through to Autumn Ridge, we're basically hoping that the town of Branford, through its council, through its council people and legal counsel, will see to discontinuing and abandoning the rest of Cherry Hill Road. I mean, it does have a wetland in it, as been pointed out. The Regional Water Authority really doesn't have any reason to have it developed for access. So we're hoping that the town will abandon that, and then we would be entitled to a portion of it. But if we deed this piece over, it'll actually just connect all of the Regional Water Authority's property under one entity. Barring some reason why the Regional Water Authority wouldn't want this piece of property, and I don't know why, because it is contiguous with the rest of their open space, we are going to have to form a condominium, a homeowner association. Sorry, I misspoke. Homeowners association, basically to take care of and manage the detention basin, because it won't, town just won't accept the detention basin as ownership. So worst case scenario, we'll have a homeowners association, and that entity would, that open space would go to that entity, unless the Branford Land Trust wanted to pick it up, possibly grab this piece. But again, I think our first and foremost recipient is the Regional Water Authority, because it makes the most sense with what's already going on adjacent to the property.
Okay, this is Commissioner Papantonis again. Is it your intention to put some sort of hypothetically, if the water company doesn't take it, will there be some restrictive covenants or conservation easement or something placed on it? And if so, whose interest will you give that to? Because I just want to make sure if it comes back before this commission again, that we have the authority to act on it.
If the Regional Water Authority doesn't take it, I don't believe the applicant would have any issue with placing any kind of conservation or restrictive easement on the balance of the property. As Jamie had pointed out, we've already agreed to place signage basically at every property corner and in between every property corner, so that people know that it's open space and not to be touched. But again, if it were to either end up as under the control of a homeowner association, then putting a conservation easement on it and deed restricting it, there would be absolutely no issue from an applicant's standpoint of doing that. And that easement or that conservation restriction could be held by the town or any entity that the wetlands agent and planning and zoning department deem is appropriate. Again, we wouldn't object to that, and whichever entity that would go to, I believe we'd be fine with that.
Any other commission comments, questions? Jamie, how about you?
Jamie Frederick in the wetland agent. So it is by and large very similar to the original application that was reviewed back, I believe, last year by the commission. There are some changes obviously to the layout. stormwater has been reviewed by the town engineer again. And I do have a staff report drafted with some possible conditions for the commission to consider. I did omit having a condition regarding I had thought of adding something, but I didn't. But I do think it would be a good idea for the commission, if they are ready to make a decision this evening, to also consider a condition regarding what Commissioner Papatones was just discussing. And if the open space is to be privately owned by a homeowners association, to have a conservation deed restriction placed on that property, to just help clarify for all parties what is and isn't allowed on that parcel without permission from whoever they may need to get permission from. And that language could be reviewed and approved by the inland wetland agent and town council. Should that be something that the commission would think would be beneficial. I do think that, given the fact that it is a lot of steep slopes and it is above that offsite wetland and the Cherry Hill right away, it would be appropriate for the commission to request, and it did sound like the applicant would be okay with that kind of condition.
This is Commissioner Papantonis again. I just would want that phrased so that there's no issue about our jurisdiction on that restrictive covenant, or however it turns out to be worded.
Yeah, so that's where the importance of having it reviewed by the inland wetland agent and town council prior to the actual filing would be important, just to make sure that it does cover the basis of what the condition is requesting. If you would prefer, if you'd feel more comfortable, you could say by the inland wetland agency, meaning it would have to come back to the commission and town council, and I would recommend town council be part of that review process either way.
I'd like to see that wording on it.
Does the commission want to take a quick look at the staff report that I have drafted up?
Let's
Or
do
do you
it.
have any other questions regarding the site plan before we?
No. See what you got, Jamie.
So as the first order of business, I would just like to also recap that the application submitted is a subdivision without regulated activity. As the applicant mentioned, all activity is greater than 100 feet from the wetlands and water courses. The last time the commission reviewed the application, that was also the case, and the commission did debate a little bit whether it was a subdivision with regulated activity or a subdivision without regulated activity. I told them to submit it as subdivision without regulated activity, since that's what the commission decided last time. Unless any of the commissioners take issue with that, we'll assume that's the proper way to go. And the conditions that I draft are based off of that assumption. So again, I go into a little bit about the wetland information. On page 2 of the project narrative, they stated there's no proposed wetland area or upland review area disturbances associated with the proposed plan. Lots 7 through 11 are encumbered by upland review area that is associated with 3 ponds that are located on the adjacent properties. As such, the deeds for these 4 parcels, 5, but will contain language with respect to the encumbrance, so that any potential buyers and or future homeowners are aware that future activities may require them to obtain a permit from the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency. So that's not a deed restriction, but it is language on the deed to make purchasers aware that there are wetlands that are regulated relative to the subject property. So going down to the possible conditions for consideration, standard pre-construction meeting, erosion control inspection, stormwater inspection, and final inspection. Since it's subdivision without regulated activity, lots 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, all the lots that definitely have upland review area, shall have inland wetland applications submitted for review of the individual lot development. No work is to occur on these sites until such approval has been issued. A copy of the deed language mentioned on page 2 of the August 22nd, 2022 project narrative and sequence which is what I just read previously, is to meet with the approval of the IWEO, which is the Inland Wetland Officer, and Town Council, and is to be filed on the land records. So that basically gives us a chance to look at it and make sure that it is in fact what we thought it was going to be. Copies of the filed deeds and associated subdivision maps shall be submitted to the Inland Wetland Agency prior to start of site work and submitting application for building permits. 4 is a general condition regarding the fact the commission has reviewed the subdivision as a subdivision plan, and that all the site grading, stormwater management, and design aspects have been reviewed to work together, and that everything has to be developed so that it continues to work together as proposed. Therefore, clearing limits, grading, erosion control measures of the entire site must comply with the approved subdivision plans. Requires that all lots, even the ones that are greater than 100 feet, have their final site plan submitted to the agency so that we can double check that the grading doesn't deviate and send the drainage somewhere different than where it was reviewed to be going. No new activity shall commence on a lot unless full subdivision site is in compliance with the permit and erosion controls are in good working order. Number 5 was just a point of clarification. It calls for inlet protection on the site plans, but I didn't see it called out specifically on the catch basins, which might have been an oversight as far as the correct page. So just to make sure it was clear, inlet protection shall be installed and maintained in all catch basins installed on site and adjacent to site entrances on Cherry Hill Road and Autumn Ridge Road until completion of the project and site stabilization. 6, all roof and footing drains which discharge to daylight shall have an energy dissipator installed, which can be confirmed during the individual site approval process. There was only one I saw that didn't appear to have the energy dissipator specifically called out for. And then I would also recommend the commission consider a condition number 7, essentially that should the open space be privately owned by a homeowners association, a conservation restriction shall be placed on the open space and filed on the land records after review and approval by the Inland Wetland Agency and Town Council.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Yeah, I think 7 is a good addition. A question, I guess, on the site, given the size of the site. And I think it was mentioned that there was not a lot of mature trees on the site. Is the plan to clear cut and then put the road in, or what actually is the construction aspect of this?
Would you like me to answer, Jamie? I'll the answer. The intent, and we actually, within the set of plans, we have a specific sheet for the S&E development, S&E controls for the road construction. So the intent would be to install a road, get the utilities in, and get it to binder course. Then sell off or develop lots depending upon how the applicant and or developer decide to proceed. But we want to get the road in, get our detention basin in so we can control our runoff, and then proceed with the development of the lots.
Everything else will be piece by piece.
The lots will be piece by piece, yes, but the road should go in as a whole, the utilities, all that is key. And since we are pulling most of the utilities down from Autumn Ridge, we need to get that taken care of. We also have to deal with the 2 driveways for the neighbors. So we, there should be no intention of trying to build a lot without having that road to binder course. It would literally be a mess. And given the way the site slopes and to where I would be against trying to open up lots before this road gets to binder course.
Appreciate the comment.
Thank you, sir.
We've had some experience where that wasn't the case.
I know. And as far as clear cutting goes, as I mentioned earlier, there are mature trees where I'm showing tree line, but the majority of the interior is really scrub growth, so in this case here, you can kind of see along these lots, along the rear of these lower lots, 7 through 11, where the tree line is, and then north and west of that, kind of going through where the original homestead was, that's just secondary growth because it hasn't been mowed. No one's taken care of it in years. So it's all that reeds and vines, so there's really not a lot to be saved there. And as we go through and do the road and then look at individual lots, if there happens to be an individual tree that is worth saving, obviously we'll save it, because it is less expensive for a developer to save a tree than cut it down and then have to install a little 2.5-inch sapling. So I'm never a proponent of clear cutting a property, and we definitely won't be clear cutting this property either. So
Thank you.
you're welcome, sir.
So Jamie, you want to put that condition of approval up again?
Sure. Oops, wrong one. And that would be something that Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, that's generally something, especially based off of past experience, that we would go over during the pre-construction meeting to just remind them, hey, you've got this first phase, you have your erosion control plan for putting in the road, that's what you're doing now.
Yep.
On this particular site, I think it works out pretty well because the main part of the site has been by and large disturbed previously. So it's mostly herbaceous growth. And then I think as far as the scrub shrub, it's mostly autumn olive, if I remember correctly, which is an invasive. So there's no issue really with having that taken out, but it also shouldn't make it too hard for them to do the grading activity for the road without feeling that they need to do additional disturbance beyond where they're proposing.
Okay.
So this is actionable. However, the commission does have additional time before they have to act. So if the commission feels like they're ready, then I do have this drafted staff report. If commission has additional questions, comments, or wants staff to further revise the conditions prior to making a decision, a decision on the application is not required until October 14th, and the next meeting is October 13th. So right under the wall.
Maybe you didn't hear me. I said, could you put up the staff report?
Oh, sorry. Can you not see it?
No.
It didn't. Okay. It didn't jump from one program to the other. Sorry about that.
There we go. So this Commissioner Bassman, extending what staff just commented on, does any commissioner feel that we need additional time on this application? Does any commissioner feel that 1 through 6, there would make any changes to the possible conditions of approval illustrated here as 1 through 6? They were also read into the record.
I would just mention there was also the mention of a 7th condition regarding the open space.
Have issue with what was read as a potential number 7?
This Commissioner Papantonis, I think I would just, I would have that as a condition, no matter who gets that property, because you never know if the water company would sell it off at some point.
So
I'm a belt and suspenders person.
Okay, to hopefully finish this condition of approval, could you read a proposed item 7 and take into account what Commissioner Papantonis just commented on?
Okay, so I guess a possible language could be a conservation restriction language shall be implemented for the open space property. Language shall be reviewed and approved by the Inland Wetland Agency and Town Council prior to implementation.
Does that do it for you, Commissioner Papantonis?
I think so.
Are there any other conditions that commissioners feel need to be added? Does any commissioner feel the need to make a motion here?
Commissioner Begemann, I'll take a stab at it. I make a motion that we approve inland wetlands 220705, 175 Cherry Hill Road subdivision with the conditions 1 through 6 as printed and 7 as read into the record, as well as the standard conditions of approval.
Is there a second on that motion?
Commissioner Papantonis, I'll second.
Any further discussion on that motion?
Jamie Frederick, inland wetland agent. I'll just mention standard conditions and general provisions and issuance of all permits. Would also.
Do both commissioners that made motions accept that amendment?
Yes, Commissioner Begemann.
Commissioner Papantonis, yes.
Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Papantonis?
Yes.
Commissioner Finaro?
Commissioner Finaro, yes.
Commissioner Begemann?
Commissioner Begemann, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you very much for your time, ladies and gentlemen. You have a wonderful evening.
You too. Commissioner Begemann, thank you for that motion.
Oh, welcome.
All right, we have inland wetland 220801, 290 Pine Orchard Road, modification of inland wetland 210102, artificial turf.
Jamie Frederick, inland wetland agent. It's my understanding that the applicant team could not be present this evening. We did receive some materials from the applicant regarding responses to questions and also a test of runoff from the turf used on site. Let's see. Let me see if I can open that up real quick. And then I do also have a staff report if the commission feels like they're ready to make a decision, or I told the applicant that if there were additional questions that couldn't be answered because they were not here, that the item would be continued to the October meeting. But I told them
When were you told that the applicant could not make it?
I was told via email. What? Sorry, I'm just trying to open these files and having some issues. So just as a quick recap, permit was issued for an in-ground pool, a garage, and some other site modifications. Upon inspection, there was a question along the process as to whether turf could be used in lieu of the proposed patio. I told them to submit some information. Somehow that got lost in translation. The turf got installed. I thought it could be a modification to the existing permit. The commission reviewed and determined it should be a new application based on the unknown information regarding the usage of artificial turf. So since then, the applicant has submitted information regarding the fact that by using the artificial turf, they're actually decreasing the impermeable area on the site. There is a bit more artificial turf than what was originally proposed for patio. However, the artificial turf is restricted to the area around the pool and as an alternative to a patio. Let's see, I'll pull up the site plan real quick to refresh everyone's memory. Is everyone seeing the site plan?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So here's the swimming pool. Artificial turf is the area with the little tufts of grass kind of looking symbol around it. This is where the retaining wall was, pretty much as proposed, a little bit of modification. and then the stormwater management, which is as proposed, and then their planting area. And then you can see wetland flags 10 through 1 is the edge of the wetland area associated with the pond on site. So the commission had asked for some more information regarding the chemical makeup of the turf and some additional questions. So in response to what is a turf made of, according to the manufacturer, the turf comprises 2 main parts, the yarn or the grass and the backing. The yarn is made of polyethylene and polypropylene monofilament. The backing is made from a polyurethane and a polypropylene. All materials in the making of the turf are non-toxic. How long has the product been on the market as it relates to research available information on the product? We just got a response of the products have been on the market for at least 20 years. How does water runoff infiltrate through the turf? The turf backing contains drainage holes every 4 to 5 inches. Drainage rate is 30 inches per hour per square yard. The sub base that was prepared for the turf consists of 3/4 crushed rock and stone dust, gravel fines. The turf and sub base allow for drainage. And then I added not raised at last week's meeting, but raised at the July meeting. Has there been any research of the particular product or products made from the same materials regarding microplastics and stormwater runoff? And the response to that was, please see the attached chemical testing report for the subject product. According to the report, no detectable leachates are present in the product. Based on these results, it can be concluded that the product is chemically inert. And then if you go to the test results, they're showing what the limit is and what was observed. So it didn't, I didn't dive into this very much, but it doesn't show that it exceeds any thresholds or that it's near any measurable thresholds. As you can see, it looks like a lot of them don't have a threshold, but also it's pretty fairly low numbers. So I'm not sure if the commission has any additional questions, feels additional information is needed. I think one of the things the commission should consider as part of this application is, I get the concern for not wanting artificial turf to pop up everywhere and anywhere. I think it's important to consider the application of the turf and what it's being used for, and the fact that it is being used as a patio alternative, that they're not redoing their entire yard with it. And I think it's also kind of, yeah, I guess that's all I have for now, unless the commission has any additional questions.
Well, this Commissioner Bassman, I guess from my standpoint, you know, the comment was, hey, this may be okay, but before you do anything, let us know. Well, it was put in, and now we're getting the let us know. From the let us know, there doesn't appear to be anything that is that jumps out of the page and says stop. And certainly I don't have any information external to this that would indicate that this is a problem. So for me, it was the process that was the issue, as opposed to the actual material. Now that this test results and those kinds of things and the questions have been addressed, it's too bad this wasn't done prior to installation. But I have no additional further questions, and it looks like it's especially with the reduction in the area in this application, not a bad move. Anybody feel different? Want to vote?
Turn and mute myself. It's Commissioner Papantonis. Are we
Sorry.
Isn't this an enforcement action?
So,
Are we able, under the regs, to change this to a new application?
so there was a notice of violation sent, and the notice of violation directed that they either remove the turf and implement the approved site plan or submit an application for an alternative that they would want to do, such as leaving the site as they did it. So they did submit this application in response to the notice of violation. So we do have a new application fee, application materials, and that's what we're reviewing right now. Later in the agenda, we do have that notice of violation on the agenda as well. Not to jump ahead, but essentially, however the commission determines on this application would ultimately determine whether or not that notice of violation is resolved.
And just to be clear, Commissioner Bass, just to be clear, approval of this inland wetland 220801 would vacate the NOV. Am I correct on that, Jamie?
That would be my recommendation, should the commission decide to approve the application.
Okay, so Commissioner Papantonis, so I guess the question is, if this had been presented to us as a plan, would we have approved it?
Well,
And,
I think it is being presented to you as a plan now. It's a new application. This is what they're proposing to do, and the commission is looking at it now, whether or not this is an acceptable site plan. And the commission has to make their decision based on evidence and scientific facts of the case. They have submitted some, they've done some research on the material, and they've submitted more information on the drainage, which was very important from my perspective, because I've not seen artificial turf really installed in this region, particularly in this type of application. I know it's used for athletic fields, but so I was interested in seeing how that would work, how it would play in with the rest of the site. And I know there was concerns raised by, I believe, an abutting property owner regarding some of the leachate and microplastics, which the applicant tried to respond to. I'm not sure how much information there is on the market, or not on the market, but out there on artificial turf, particularly in these types of applications. I did try to reach out to the state to see if they had any guidance. I left a voicemail. I didn't get a call back. I wasn't really sure which department I should be talking with, and I didn't further pursue it. So I think the commission at this point has to look at whether or not this is something that's allowable per the regulations, and if what kind of concerns for the wetland do you have, and what would the basis for that concern be. And I think at this point, the only concern could be lack of information, but the commission also has to be sensitive to availability of information. I'm not sure that the product has been on the market long enough, and or the research has been around long enough to really address, say, like the microplastics question. And as you can see from the test results they submitted, a lot of these things, they don't have thresholds. So there's really nothing to say one way or the other. There's nothing here to say that it's problematic.
Right. And you can't what if this thing.
Exactly. You can't say, well, I'm not sure about it, so I don't like it. But I think the commission might want to, as part of this review, I think obviously making sure you've crossed your T's and dotted your I's, but also specifying, the fact that it's artificial turf in lieu of a stone patio. It's not, I want to artificial turf my entire yard. It's a specific application. You've received specific information on the turf being used. You've received specific information on the drainage underlay. that it's not going to impact the drainage management on site, that it actually decreases the impermeable area on the site, will allow for more infiltration. I mean, I feel like I'm trying to sell this and I'm not. Like, I certainly understand the concerns regarding artificial turf. But I also just want to make sure the commission is being mindful of the fact that any decision has to be based on facts.
So this is Commissioner Papantonis. What would be a reasonable condition? I mean, would it be reasonable for us to review this like 5 years out and make sure that it's still in satisfactory condition and not falling apart?
So Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent, I think that, let's see, so the permit itself is valid for, I believe, 5 years based off of statutory permit durations likely. So I would recommend, if the commission does want some sort of follow-up inspection, whether it be a visual inspection, a follow, like a water quality sample, I don't know. Maybe have that be at like the 3-year mark, just to make sure, so that if there's any issues that they might be able to be addressed. I'm not really sure. Beyond being informative to the commission, I'm not really sure what that would provide. It would help the commission make decisions down the road on this kind of thing, but I think it's not like in 3 years. I don't think if the commission were to approve this application, I think the commission would be hard pressed to tell them in 3 years they had to
rip it up,
remove it.
This is Commissioner Papantonis. My only concern is, or my major concern is its proximity to the wetlands. The pond is right there. So I would like to see some kind of a condition on this for some sort of review at a 3 or 4 year mark, to make sure that we're not putting micro whatever into the pond, and that it's not deteriorating and damaging the wetlands.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Jamie, given Commissioner Papatonis' concern, I think it's probably a legitimate concern. How about if we crafted a document to be reviewed at the next meeting, which indicate the rationale for moving ahead with the application, and then the addition of a monitoring of the artificial turf, I guess 3 years out, as a condition of approval. And then we'll deal with that at the next meeting when we've got something tangible to look at, and make sure that we address the concerns within the context of the document in terms of the rationale.
I think that's a good idea, especially so that I can do some more research on suggestions as to what would possibly be the appropriate type of monitoring to be looking for.
I'm sensitive to the fact that this is kind of a first time application. And you know, we don't have precedent here, and I don't want to establish precedent on a first time application without some degree of caution.
Understood, for sure.
Any other comments on the commission?
This is Commissioner Begman. That's what I was thinking, is that it's hard to put conditions if we don't know what we're looking for.
Right.
So you need a scientist who knows about, you know, polypropylene and polyethylene and what happens over time. It might be one, I don't know when those studies that the company gave, could be that they were done right when the stuff is new, and we know the plastics degrade with time, or so, but as to what specific conditions, we don't have that information as what to do, so.
Right. We're all learning here.
Yeah.
All right,
All right, so continue to the October
October
13th
meeting.
meeting and staff will get some more information for that.
okay, we have next up BRIW 220801, 4581 Short Rocks Road, which is the supply ponds replacement of a pole bridge over Pine Gutter Brook. And I think we've seen this.
Yeah, Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. Richard Shanahan provided the commission with an overview of the project at the last meeting. I don't think the commission had any significant outstanding questions. However, the application was for receipt and was not actionable. It is actionable tonight should the commission determine they have the information that they need. Let me pull up plans real quick to just.
I'm actually sitting in for Rich.
Welcome.
So I'll pull up the plans, and then if the commission has any questions, I will let you
Okay.
respond to
Yeah.
them unless there's anything specific you'd like to bring up to the commission while I'm pulling everything up.
Oh, I think he said he submitted everything. He's actually out of the country, so he just asked me if I'd sit in if there was any questions.
All right, so the site is the supply ponds. You've got kind of the main parking areas, so the northern parking area relative to the proposed site location. They're looking to replace pole bridge. They had submitted an application previously to replace the bridge and also do some kind of shore armoring. And there were some questions regarding how effective that would be. So at this point, they're looking to just replace the bridge to help make sure that there's safe and accessible access across this watercourse area. And
well, I can add a little to that. The current poles there are 24 feet and the ones that we have coming in are 32 feet. So you're looking at 8 more feet, so 4 more feet on each side. So that should help with, stability and, being set further inland. And we have a system already proposed with Jim Boyd and the contractor that's doing the building.
And the access will be the same access that is used to clean out the temporary sediment trap. This is the existing bridge, and as was just mentioned, the bridge will be a bit longer, which will help with kind of the longevity of the replacement. This is an alternative bridge that has been used, but I think one of the concerns Richard raised is it's not very, you have to get off your bike, or for somebody that might be unable to do stairs, having the more flush bridge would be easier. And I guess currently my mountain bikes are cutting through the water course in an area where there's some clearing. So they're trying to prevent that given the impacts to the water course, and also there is some debris in the water course that could potentially, that they were concerned with. So this is an example of the new bridge that they're looking to do with hand railings and whatnot. The only impact to the water course really would be any shading from the bridge. There's a bridge there that they're looking to replace pretty much in kind. I'll stop talking and see if the commissioners have any questions.
This is Commissioner Basserman. I guess looking at the pictures that Jamie just put up, is there a benefit, and I don't know how wide that bridge is that we looked at, but
right,
is there a benefit to keeping that more shallow than wide to
yes,
discourage non-pedestrian traffic across that bridge?
I know exactly what you're getting at, and we definitely are taking measures for that. We're either going to put ballards or large granite boulders at the ends so that pedestrians and bikes can get by. But the as you know, in the upper part of the supply pond, the upper loop, so to speak, we've had an issue with some illegal ATVs, and we're trying to discourage that down. We had never really had much in the lower part, but yeah, so we're going to take measures with that, and we are going to leave it a little more narrow. And instead of having 2 poles, as you saw in that photo, we will have 3.
Thank you. I don't have any additional questions. Any other commissioner want to ask Mr. Tolbert any questions on this? This is actionable, you said, Jamie?
Yes.
Yes, I
And-
sent you the email that I got from the town engineer giving us the thumbs up.
Yeah, the town engineer did review the bridge, and his response was basically that it's over engineered. So he was okay with it.
And then we were responsible for maintaining the wood.
Okay. I guess I'll make a motion that we approve 220801, 4581 Short Rocks Road, Branford Supply Pond, replacement of a pole bridge over Pine Gutter Brook. I think this will go a long way to resolving a erosion issue, and as well as add to the public use of the trails associated with the Branford Supply Ponds. Is there a
Commissioner
second?
Papantonis, second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Jamie, Frederick, and the wetland agent, real quick. I might just add real quick that as conditions of approval, a preliminary site visit with staff and a final inspection be required.
Okay, with that amendment, I accept that amendment.
I accept that amendment.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Papantonis,
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Finaro,
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Begeman,
Commissioner Begeman, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. Thank you for your interest and effort here, Mr. Tolbert.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
No. Now we're into some enforcement. Again, up 290 Pine Orchard Road, artificial turf, non-compliance with permit. Go ahead.
Yeah, based on our previous discussion and to continue the application, I would suggest tabling this item to the October 13th meeting.
Seems reasonable. Cease and correct 220601 and the second NOV for 20 Huntington Drive. Removal of trees and the placement of debris. Looks like we have a restoration plan.
Jamie, Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent. So at the last meeting, the commission received a copy of a report from the soil scientist that was hired by the applicant in response to the violation. The commission request that the applicant respond with some timeframes for completing the recommended items 1 through 5. I did receive an email today from the property owner, and I prepared a brief memo to try and outline those points in the responses and staff recommendations. And I believe that I saw the property owner is present. So if the commission has any questions for them, and or if the property owner has any questions as we go through it, we can take a look at that. So as soon as I find the right folder. To recap for the commission, there was some vegetation removal back in 2019, 2020. And then there was some additional vegetation removal more recently, which was the second notice of violation. The commission was not getting the timely responses they were looking for, so the cease and correct order was issued. Since then, the mitigation report has been received, and these are the 5 action items. So the first one is that the wetland boundary should be surveyed. Owner indicated that this work could occur the first week of October. So the recommendation is that a copy of the updated survey be submitted to the agency by October 18th, just to make sure that the survey crew had time to update the actual physical survey and for the owner to get it submitted to the Inland Wetland Office. The second recommendation was that the wetlands be demarcated on the site. Owner indicated that that work could be done in a couple of weeks. Staff recommendation is regarding demarcation, there are signs available in the inland wetland office that could be used. They're $5 each. Or if the property owner wants to use an alternative form of demarcation, that should be reviewed by the inland wetland agent. And if that a site visit should be scheduled prior to the October 13th regularly scheduled meeting to confirm that activity has been completed. 3 was carefully remove the debris from the wetland by hand. Owner indicated that based on the scope of work and cost, he estimated that would take at least 2 months, which kind of gets to the end of past the planting season. So the recommendation is that activity should start as soon as possible as weather allows, and work should be completed so that plantings can occur after completion of removal activity and no later than May 30th, 2023. If the activity can happen this fall, it would be great and it would be ideal. But I think at the absolute latest, the commission should look to have that work completed by May 30th, which would be the spring planting season. Number 4 is planting the 28 shrubs along the wetland edge. Again, the owner indicated at least 2 months and expressed some concerns regarding the associated costs, which is again why the recommendation is planting should be completed as soon as possible, as is seasonally appropriate. We don't want them to plant when they're not going to survive the planting, and it should occur after the removal of the debris from the wetland to make sure the plantings are not impacted. And planting should occur no later than May 30th, 2023. And then number 5 is regarding consulting a landscaper for a plan regarding the western slope of the site that was disturbed. That plan was to address whether or not topsoil needed to be brought in and how to control the invasives on that slope, and essentially an alternative to fill that space. So the recommendation, or the owner indicated that they have met with 2 landscape professionals and they're waiting to hear back. Staff recommends that the plan addressing the concerns raised in mitigation requirement number 5 be submitted by October 6th for review at the October 13th meeting. Final judgment on time to be reserved until plan is received. Anticipated recommendation for completion no later than May 30th. Oh, that should say 2023. And then also recommend that a final inspection be completed. Of completed work shall be scheduled for no later than June 2nd, 2023 to confirm compliance with completed items. So that way the commission can be updated at the June meeting. And then I think the commission may also want to consider whether it's appropriate to specify what happens if these deadlines are not met.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Bassett, but before we do that, I guess, Jamie, do we have some risk if we do the removal portion without putting the plantings in?
Yes. So if, say, the removal starts this season, I think as long as they're planting early in the spring planting season, it should be fine. They just need to get those plantings in close to the completion of the removal.
Well, that's what I mean. Suppose they started at, October, and, we've had decent weather,
Yeah.
And you get the removal done, and then you've got basically nothing there to hold the winter, rain, snow, whatever, until you put the plantings in the spring.
Well, the plantings aren't going in the same location as the material to be removed.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah,
And I think the important thing is, the intention to have it carefully removed by hand is to minimize the soil impact.
Yep.
And I think the thought is that hopefully the material hasn't been there that long, that whatever's underneath will revegetate. So I'm not too worried about it so long as, that care is taken. But I still think it's important to get those shrubs planted relatively soon, because those plantings are going to help prevent any invasives that might be there from fully flourishing and taking over, because while it's not the same area, they're adjacent, and I think that it would offer that little bit of protection, particularly as the plantings are being maintained during that initial transition from, the shock of transplanting the shrubs.
Yep. But, you know, there's a fair amount of activity that's got to occur on this site with
There
some,
is, and
with some
yeah.
pretty specific dates.
so I think my main concern is making sure that it's done by the spring planting season. So that way everything's resolved before we go through next summer.
Yeah.
I'm hesitant to say it all has to happen this fall because that is very tight. And also the concern of financing was raised. So I think by allowing it to spill over to the spring planting season, it gives a little bit more time to plan that out. So I mean, alternatively, we could just get rid of the as soon as possible and change everything to say, my only concern about waiting to remove all of the debris until the winter and or spring is if conditions don't really allow for that at that time frame, then they get hung up.
Well, and excuse me, Commissioner Basserman, I mean, this has been percolating along here for a bit, so.
I think it's probably going to be easiest to actually remove that. When I say as soon as possible, I think probably generally speaking, like November, December is going to be the easiest time frame because that's going to be after leaf off. Things are going to be somewhat drier, somewhat firmer from being cold, but not frozen, particularly like you get into December. So I think the winter could be a good time to remove some of these debris materials. I just don't want them to wait until the spring when everything gets super wet and is not workable. So.
Well, what do you want to do? You want to put activity should start as soon as possible, no later than?
I mean, the commission could change 3 to say recommendation activities should occur during late fall, early winter months, and then change 4 to say planting should be completed early in the spring planting season with planting to occur no later than May 30th.
I like 4, but you just read for 4. What was your other one?
Basically that 3 should happen during the late fall, early winter months to prevent issues with vegetation starting to kind of adjust that vegetation growth concern that you had, but also try and make sure that work is completed before. Maybe the better way to say it is activity should occur before winter freeze. I don't know.
Yeah,
we never know when that is.
We don't,
but it gives some context of.
I think you got to pick a date.
I mean, it's really hard to say because really the main thing as far as carefully removing by hand is you want to make sure you're considering the weather. So you want to make sure the ground isn't soft and mushy and you're not going to be creating more of a mess while you do the activity. So it's kind of hard to give it a firm date. I think the main concern is that it's done when the conditions allow for it to be done with the minimal amount of impact, and that it's done in time that planting can occur in the spring. I don't know, the commission could say.
What does anybody else feel? I mean,
December 15th.
That seems late to me anyways.
Or, I mean, before your December, you could say November 30th. I don't know.
Commissioner Papantonis, how about just before the December meeting, our December meeting?
So the December meeting is on the 8th. So generally the week before, so December 1st.
That works for me.
All right.
I guess I could live with that.
This is Commissioner Papantonis. I have a couple of questions also. I don't remember, but I think December 1st is a good date. I don't remember what restrictions we put on the 28 shrubs, whether we specified what they should be. And the other comment I had is up ahead, we're supposed to get a report on October 18th, but we're meeting on the 13th. So is there any way to move that up a week? It's a little higher up.
Oh, the survey?
Yep.
Yeah.
So that I think is really kind of more of a checkbox. I don't think that's something the commission. So that's basically the wetland flags that were placed in the field by the soil scientist should be added to the soil or to the survey. We could put October 12th and maybe just note that should the delay be on the surveyor's end, that would be understandable. So that hopefully it's available for the commission to look at the 13th, but if they're doing the work the first week of October, I think the way that the dates work, it makes it kind of tight.
Okay.
And I know the surveying companies are really behind, and it's possible they could have it ready for the 12th, but I also want to be reasonable to what the industry
Because
But this Commissioner Bassel, I guess what we could do in A is say owner indicated work can be done by first week in October. If this work is not completed during this week, notify inland wetland agent.
Well, so I mean, okay. So yeah, I guess the other question is whether or not the field work is going to be just done the first week, or the field work and the survey will be done the first week. I think that's what I'm getting hung up on. So we'll put number 1, we'll say October 12th. Does that work?
Yes.
And then contact IW office if delay.
And then this Commissioner Papantonis
Per surveyor.
You said to schedule a site walk before the 13th. So if those things aren't done, or if some of the stuff isn't done, then do we need to move that date? But days are getting shorter too.
So a site visit, not a site walk. So that would be a site visit with staff. The commission wouldn't include the commission.
Okay.
Unless the commission thinks that that's necessary, but
no.
That was basically so that staff can report back to the commission and say, yes, we've gone out there and they have marked the wetland with signage.
Gotcha.
And then your last comment down the bottom of the page was, and failure to do this results in what? Last line.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, this has been kind of a drawn out process. I feel that the commission is starting to get some responses, but it's important that we keep the ball rolling. So I don't know if the commission wants to, specify failure to meet the deadlines. May result in issuance of fine, or
But when it's already a cease and correct, right?
It's already a cease and correct. You could say failure to meet the deadlines could result in filing of the cease and correct on the land records, which wouldn't be necessarily a financial burdensome upfront, but it would also be something that would help light the fire of this is important, it needs to be resolved. Or the commission can specify that should another deadline not be met, additional action will be taken, and leave it open-ended, but just say, hey, we're taking this seriously. It needs to be completed. Keep in touch. If there is anything that, make sure that communication is open and that steps of progress are being taken.
Maybe soft pedal from my statement, maybe soft pedal a little bit and say, commission understands that the applicant or the violator, however we say it, will keep informing the commission should any of the dates noted above are in jeopardy.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this Commissioner Papantonis, and we do have authority to issue fines, so I'm not afraid to say that failure to comply will result in the commission enforcing the fines that pursuant to the regulations. But I'm sure that we want compliance. We don't want
Right.
the money.
Obviously, the main goal is compliance, and you know, there's already concerns over financial issues. We don't want to further, you know, stress the owner out. We want to make sure we get to a resolution, but we also want to make sure there's progress in the correct direction. So I think it's just important that the applicant is, or the property owner is aware that these are the anticipated timeframes. We can, you know, maybe kind of bridge the two and say commission understands owner will keep commission informed of any timeline issues, and that failure to do so and or comply with the timelines could result in additional enforcement action, which is already, that language is built into the cease and correct order. So it's just repeating and reiterating. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it can't happen. The commission isn't looking to do it at this time. We're looking to work with the property owner and get this to a resolution that works.
Yep.
That work for the commission?
Does, yep. Anybody feel different?
Commissioner Papantonis, I agree.
Next up, cease and correct 220701. Oh,
Wait, before we head on, just trying to think here. I believe the property owner, is property still present?
I didn't see it.
Yes.
Do you have any questions or concerns regarding the decision to basically accept the timelines identified in the memo with the modification that number 3 should be completed by December 1st and number 4, the planting should be completed in the spring of 2023?
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with the deadlines and stuff. That's reasonable. I would just, say that, I mean, I understand with all the fines and I appreciate the result, but I understand, the question as to whether I'm engaged in this and ready, trying to resolve this and come to, a solution with you guys, I don't think that's in question anymore, because I've attended the last 3 meetings. I've made sure I've supplied what was asked of me to supply. So I think I've showed that I've been trying to comply, at the same time, like I was expressing to you, Jamie, I do want to, if I had $1 million, I'd have this done next month, you know what I mean? But in the end of the day, as I was explaining, the only reason of the timelines and the reason why I need a little bit more time is because it's not cheap things that are being requested to be done there. And so, again, how I explained to you, Jamie, I have not just, this house that I'm trying to finish off the actual house itself, because I'm paying $20,000 a year in taxes there. I'm trying to carry all this so that I can get everything done. So that's why I was saying, if I had the money, I would absolutely have already complied with that and had everything, whatever they cost or whatever it was. But, that's the only thing that's holding me up is that, this takes organization. It takes me getting quotes because everybody's coming in super high with a lot of the stuff that needs to be done there. And as you guys have seen, the area that needs to get covered is extensive, especially with the slope of that mountain. So, again, trying to comply and make sure that I'm on top of this and doing what I can to make sure I get this done. I've reached out to the surveyors and all that. So I should be, and I'm staying on top of them. So I absolutely will let you know if there's any kind of discrepancy with that, But again, I just want to reiterate to the commission that it's not that, I've been here, I've been coming to the meetings, making sure I'm present to make sure that I'm hearing what you guys have to say and trying to comply with everything. The only thing that's holding me is, like I said, sometimes with some of these things is the financial constraint. So I will be working on that. And again, keep you guys abreast of everything that's going on, and keep moving forward.
Great to hear. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Cease and correct 220701 6 Partridge Lane. No clearing and earthwork within a conservation deed restricted area. We had a just cause hearing continuing from our July 28, 22 meeting.
Mr. Chairman,
before we go anywhere, I'm gonna mention 2 things. One, we only have 4 people present, so we're just barely holding on to a quorum. So I'm just gonna start off by saying I did receive a memo from town council today in response to the commission's request. It was suggested that it might be a good idea to continue this item to another meeting so that all parties can have a chance to review and digest that. So based on that and the number of people we have present and the fact that I believe there's a commissioner present that wants to recuse themselves, I think the commission should consider scheduling another time to discuss this matter and make sure that that time is a time that the owner can be present with their representation. So with that being said, does the commission want to continue this to the October 13th meeting? Or or do they think that it's necessary to schedule a special meeting?
This is Commissioner Basserman. I guess, given the fact that we have a potential recusal, we really can't even discuss this issue and it needs to be continued.
Sure. So just table it to the October 13th meeting at this point?
Assuming that the recusal is still in force. Commissioner Papatonis?
Is that the intent to recuse?
It is my intent to recuse myself, yes.
Okay. We'll no longer have a quorum if you do. So I'm going to recommend that we table the item to the October 13th meeting, but I just might ask real quick that the party, can you indicate whether or not you're able to attend the October 13th meeting?
Mr. Chairman, this is Attorney Marjorie Shansky and I represent Adam Greenberg. This is the third time we've appeared and the opinion of council came in this afternoon. And I appreciate that a continuance is on the table because we don't work by surprise in the law. That's not optimum. So, but I would also ask that you consider if we have to move to now a fourth meeting, that we not have to wait till the end of the meeting to have this conversation with the commission, because this has been very costly to my client and very delayed when we have been here every time ready to have this conversation. So if you can consider that, we'd be grateful. Thank you very much.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Yeah, I hear two things on your timing issue. One is where in the order of the agenda is this item? I understand. Second is, and staff brought this up, whether we wait until the next regularly scheduled meeting, or do we have a special meeting so that we don't have to wait 30 days for this item? All right, that's the second part of the timing that I can see appropriate for discussion here. We certainly can't have any content discussion this evening, given we don't have enough members. Do the members that are present feel that a special meeting is warranted in this case? Which would be, generally we do it like halfway between this meeting and the next regularly scheduled meeting. So that would be kind of the end of September.
I'm abstaining, so.
Right. Commissioner Papatonis, are you recusing? I understand. Commissioner Begeman, what do you feel about a special meeting?
If that's something that we typically do for something like this, it's okay with me.
It would be the only item on the agenda as a special meeting.
I think maybe given the circumstances, I don't think that there's a problem with continuing it to the next meeting. However, maybe given the circumstances of not receiving and the fact that they've come to a couple of meetings now, asking whether they would like to continue it to the regular meeting or try and schedule a special meeting to speed up the process might not be out of order.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, Attorney
Please.
Shansky, my client would, of course, prefer that this be as quickly as possible. My concern is that 2 weeks from now, we're in the middle of the days of awe between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and, that's not an auspicious time for a hearing. So it may be just by circumstance that it has to go over to the next regularly scheduled meeting. But I would again respectfully ask if it could be earlier in the agenda so that we're not waiting till the end.
Commissioner Bassman, I don't have any issue with that. Is that the preferred course of action here? Next meeting, but we'll make it first on the agenda?
That
Not
sounds
hearing,
good.
not hearing a big negative. I think that's the road we're going down.
Thank you.
Thank you for your attendance this evening and hanging in there for 2.5 hours.
Nice to see you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, cease and correct 220901, 5 and 13 Summit Place, demolition and construction of 48 unit mobile multifamily residential units. Just cause hearing.
Jamie Frederick, inland wetland agent. So on Tuesday, you guys may have noticed we got a little bit of rain. 5 and 13 Summit Place is a site that was somewhat recently approved for a multifamily housing development. There was a building on 5 Summit Place to be demoed as part of the overall site project. The building was demoed, however, much of the infrastructure remains, the pavement areas, the catch basins within the pavement areas, curbing, all that. However, in addition to demoing the building, they also, for some reason, removed the vegetation and modified the slope in between the two properties because there is a step down from 13 to 5 Summit Place. And so I had met with the property owner to review temporary erosion controls regarding that disturbance. There was a plan that their engineer put together. It had not been implemented. I've been a little bit back and forth with them. And this past Tuesday, they did have an overtopping of the temporary sediment trap, which resulted in discharge of stormwater from the site, which was sediment laden, discharging on the slope above the wetland area, which is probably about 50 feet away from the wetland. So I did issue a cease and correct order, basically requiring that the temporary erosion control plan that was designed by the engineer be implemented. And I believe I gave a deadline of next Tuesday or Wednesday. Let me pull up the order to make sure. I did talk with the owner on the phone yesterday to confirm that they received the order because it was sent out very last minute within the 10-day requirement per the statutes. However, not a whole lot of information to necessarily have a response. It was my understanding that they probably were not going to attend, and I do not see them in attendance at this meeting. If there is anyone present and would like to speak, by all means, feel free. So they did say that they intend to comply with the order and install the erosion controls by the specified date. Cease and correct order identifies the plan, temporary sediment trap, no erosion controls, cease any further activity. They weren't really doing any further activity on site aside from site stabilization. Contact the office by phone, email, or regular mail to confirm receipt. I reached out to them and they did confirm receipt. And they did imply that they were looking to comply with the order, which specifies that the erosion controls as shown on SKC 01 shall be installed as soon as possible and no later than September 13th. Contact the inland wetland office to schedule an erosion control inspection when completed. If general site work is not scheduled to commence within 60 days from September 6th, then see the disturbed hillside that runs along 5 and 13 Summit Place shared property boundary with a seed mix to establish vegetative cover. An erosion control measure such as erosion control blankets or a bonded fiber matrix shall be used to protect the slope until vegetation can establish. And then the fourth one.
Jamie,
I'm not screen sharing.
I hope. The order was issued when?
The order was issued on, let me make sure, Tuesday, I believe.
which was 9.
6, 2 days ago.
So we had to have a just cause hearing within 10 days.
Correct.
And tonight is that just cause hearing?
Correct.
And the applicant is not here.
The property owner is not here.
Property's not here. So I guess, does that mean that statutorily we are not in compliance?
So there's nothing that requires the property owner to be present. I think that it is,
I thought the idea was it had to be balanced. You had to give
yes,
the.
no, so it is a just cause hearing. And I think it is appropriate to make sure that the property owner has the ability to respond. So I think the important facts here are I reached out to the owner to confirm that they've received the order. And they've acknowledged that they have and that they intend to comply with the order. So I don't think it would be inappropriate. They also knew that the commission was meeting this evening. I don't think it'd be inappropriate for the commission to make a decision on this. And I think given the oddity of the situation where they're not present, which it does not always, there's been other cases where they're not present.
Oh, okay. All right.
The commission could say, should, you know, I don't know. I mean, particularly if you're looking to modify the order, if you're looking to uphold and modify the order, it might be good to say the commission, you know, if that's the case, that you uphold and modify the order as however you modify it. And should the owner have any concerns with the modifications, that those concerns will be heard at the October 13th meeting.
Okay, so do you have something prepared that the commission can look at as to where we go from here on this cease and correct?
Yeah, so a minute. I'll pull up the cease and correct order.
Yep.
All right. So it's, again, relevant to 5 and 13 Summit Place. There is an inland wetland permit on file, so I do have the contact information for the property owner, and I was able to touch base with them directly and confirm that they did receive the order and that they intend to comply. So the requirements of the order as I issued it are that they cease any activity that's not directly associated with site stabilization, that they contact the office to confirm receipt. And again, I contacted them, but I did confirm that they received it and that they do intend to comply. So the actions that they have to do are 2 and 3, potentially. So 2 is install the erosion control measures as shown on SKC 01 as soon as possible and no later than September 13th, which I believe is next Wednesday. Next Tuesday. And they said that they already have it scheduled to happen, so that shouldn't be a problem. And then the second or the third one, if the general site work is not scheduled to commence within 30 days, meaning the development that was approved per the inland wetland permit, that hillside should be seeded so that there's not a continued erosion potential, with the understanding that the site's going to be dormant for a while. And then 4 is that the commission will review this violation at the meeting scheduled this evening, September 8th, and may require additional information to assess and or resolve the violation. So basically that's the open-ended clause that you're going to review it and you may modify the order requirements. So alternatively, I suppose the commission could, you know, uphold, I don't know if you can uphold part of the order, but I think that if you're concerned about making sure that the property owner has the ability to respond, you can build that into your decision. But I do think it would be appropriate for the commission if, just because, let me show some pictures of the situation.
Right, before you do that, in 3.
Yep.
3, it says if general work is not scheduled to commence, yada, 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 right?
Yeah.
But you would want to be notified, I would assume, if they're not going to meet that date?
Yeah.
I don't see that in there. That's the only reason I raised it.
Yeah, so I think that that's essentially when I do the inspection for the erosion control measures is when I would look to touch base on that. But if the commission wanted to build a date into that as part of decision, that certainly is something that could happen. And the reason why I threw that in there is because the site has been in its current condition for months now. So this would have been avoidable, except for the fact that it happened in the summer months, so it would have been very hard to establish vegetation on that slope. But we're now at a point where vegetation could be established on that slope, and it would help allow the site to be in a passive situation until such time that they decide to move forward with implementing the approved site plan.
But I don't know, I'm hung up, I guess, maybe on the words, maybe something else, I don't know, but one, it looks like 3, we're saying we'd like it to be done, you know, couldn't we make it stronger that it has to be done?
Okay, so if general site work is not scheduled to commence within 30 days, then see the disturbed hillside that runs along the 5 and 13 Summit Place shared property boundary with a seed mix to establish vegetative cover no later than maybe will be like September 15th, give them a couple of extra days since they're getting a couple, since it's a delayed notice.
Yeah. Right, and you hopefully.
And
when you're
September
out there-
15th is kind of when you'd be looking to start that seeding season.
Yeah.
So certainly adding that September 15th or whatever date the commission thinks is appropriate to number 3, I think would be beneficial to the intent of the point.
Yep. Anybody feel differently? Oh, my goodness.
So this is a picture with their inlet protection. So this was the good thing they did. They did install their inlet protection. So we don't have all of this going down through the stormwater system and out to the wetlands. This looks like a mess, but I swear there is curbing there. And there's also some other debris that's preventing it from overtopping. And as you can see, this was when it was heavily raining on Tuesday. It wasn't ponding enough to be overflowing through here. So I don't think beyond the fact that it's a mess that this is a specific issue. The issue is with this temporary sediment trap, this earthen berm is on a, right below that, you can see this tree that got pushed over. It's just a steep slope drop down to the wetlands. And in this far corner over here, the water was cutting through and going down the hillside. Given the super wet conditions from having as much rain as we did that day, and the soils on site and the conditions, I didn't want to make anything worse trying to see what was actually happening over there, but it was very clear that the water was spilling through from that corner. This is upslope. This is a slope I was talking about that has been disturbed, that I'm recommending if they're not continuing with, if they're not going to start the actual site work, should be vegetated to help prevent any further issues. The site plan that their engineer submitted showed some stone check dams, which would help slow and filter water as it goes down the slope. So you've got a slope going this way and a slope going down this way, which goes ultimately to that temporary sediment trap. And then I can try and share, I've got a video that kind of puts it all together. I'm not sure how this is going to work for people seeing it. Are people seeing a video or no?
No.
1 minute. I see. Worked earlier when I tested it, of course, but not so much now. Let me try doing it through Dropbox directly.
Commissioner Begman, while you're working on that, is this on the agenda or did I miss something on the agenda?
There was a revised agenda that went out, I
Okay.
believe, yesterday.
Okay, I have the one from 9 too. Okay,
This is 9/7.
okay.
I should have said that in the beginning, Commissioner Begum.
It's okay.
All right. Are people seeing
Yes,
the Dropbox?
yeah,
So this is that hillside, the temporary sediment pond. And then the far corner where it was overtopping down the slope.
just kind of.
So the plan had, like I said, has some measures on that hillside to help slow water. And then also the design was to have the temporary sediment trap overflow and go towards that ponded area with the catch basin with the silt sack in it. But as an added measure, if they're not looking to start site work in the foreseeable future, it just makes sense to throw some like annual ride down or something like that to make sure that they don't have issues while they're not actively out there and keeping a, close eye on things. So that's where number 3 comes in. And yes, I think putting a deadline for having that implemented does make sense.
So that would be an approval with modification?
Yeah, and like I was saying earlier, if the commission's concerned with making sure that the owner has their ability to respond and be part of the process, which I think is always, what the commission should strive for, I think you could potentially uphold and modify with the the ability for the owner to raise any concerns at the October 13th meeting. But those deadlines should still be met, and it sounds like he's not going to have an issue with them.
Yeah.
So based on my conversation with him on the phone.
I think both additions are appropriate.
The one other thing I will mention is this site is supposed to have a bond for erosion controls to be submitted prior to site work. Usually we don't require that prior to the demo of a building, particularly if the rest of the structures are staying in place. I don't know if, given this erosion concern and the fact that slope has been disturbed between the two sites, if the commission wants to require the submission of the bond now rather than when they come in to do the full site work. That's the only other thing I can think of that the commission might want to consider relative to the order, and certainly is something that might be more contentious and something the owner would want to discuss at the next meeting.
Why don't we put that on the agenda for the next meeting?
Okay, so in addition to the follow-up of this, I can also send them notice that the commission will assess whether the bond needs to be submitted for the project at the October meeting.
Yeah, but we wanted to do that with the presence of the property owner. Okay. We have some other business.
Well, before we move on, so this is, since the commission is making a decision whether to uphold and modify or overturn, I think that a motion should be made. And if you want to make it open-ended, the commission can identify that they're open to discussion at the October 13th meeting, should there be any concerns regarding the modification to the order.
Anybody want to make a motion here? Do they have enough information to do that? All right, I'll take a crack. Oh, I got my computer acting up here. I'm gonna make a motion that on cease and correct 220901, 5 and 13 Summit Place, the demolition and construction of 48 unit multifamily residential unit, that today, September 8th, we had a just cause hearing on that cease and correct. We saw that the cease and correct issued September 6th, 2022 by the Branford Inland Wetland Agency. This is not going down. Had a number of conditions. I can't even scroll this thing now. Can you scroll that down? And it indicated 4 items of work to be completed. Item 1, contact the office. Item 2, install the erosion control measured September 13th. Item 4, general site work to be completed by, what was the date, Jamie?
I think I suggested September 15th, or you could do the 16th. That's a Friday.
Yeah, September 16th of 2022. And we would add an additional comment on item 5 that the commission will be discussing this at the October 13th meeting. And the presence of the property owner would be appreciated, as we will also be discussing the need for a bond for this activity. Did I leave anything out? Does anybody want to second that motion?
Commissioner Papantonis, I'll second.
Any further discussions or improvements? All right, I guess then we got to take a vote. Commissioner Papantonis?
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Begeman?
Commissioner Begeman, aye.
Commissioner Finaro?
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. Are we okay to proceed, Jamie? I see a nod of the, I see a nod of the head. I think that's good enough for me. Other business, Inland Wetland 191101, 1151 West Main. Construction of bank and grocery store and associated improvements. Looks like a monitoring report and permit compliance is what's up.
All right, Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent. So this is the relatively new Aldi and bank site that opened up on at 1151 West Main Street. The first year of monitoring reports were due this year. So there's one at the beginning of the growing season and one at the end of the growing season. I had been contacting the property owner because I had not received the initial inspection report for this year. And then it came to my attention that the property had changed hands somewhat recently, I believe end of June, beginning of July. So I recently established contact with the new property owner and relayed the need for certain items, specifically that first monitoring report and the final as-built for the site with the grading to confirm compliance with the inland wetland permit. Excuse me. I have since received the initial report from June that the soil scientist completed. And it does have some recommendations based on some things that didn't work out as planned on site. So I want to make sure the commission looks at those. I'm still waiting on the as-built, so I'm hoping that we will have that for the October meeting. There are 2 recommendations from the monitoring report. And I think the commission should make a decision regarding the first one, and the second one we are still waiting for. I think the commission's going to want to have it implemented, but it would be good to affirm one way or the other. So without further ado, here's the year 1 report 1 of 2 report done by the soil scientist that was part of the application for the project as well. I'm going to jump real quick to later in the report to show a quick site plan for, oh geez, sorry guys. So for those who are not familiar or may need a recap, the Aldi and the bank are in the front, and then in the way back, almost by Home Place, is the mitigation area. So here's the wetland area, Home Place is over here. And this is the wetland creation area. So as you can kind of maybe guess, from this area over here has been identified as an area of deficient soil and hydrology for wetland plants. So a lot of there's two things. One is there was a lot of plugs in the wetland area. So some of those plugs were not identifiable early in the season. So we don't have great numbers on that. And I think the second report is going to be key in further identifying that. But a lot of the plugs in this area, there was some concern about survivability. So I'll jump to the recommendations. One, invasive species control should be initiated. A plan for control should be developed and executed by a licensed pesticide applicator familiar with invasive control. I have been contacted by BL companies and informed that they are working on this. They did not think they could have it ready for the meeting tonight. I have not received it, but I'm hoping to receive it for the October meeting. So I think just want to confirm that that is something the commission wants to see and that they would like to review it at the October meeting. Does that seem appropriate?
It's affirmative.
All right. And then the second one is addressing the portion of the creation area that appears to be slightly higher and where soil appear to lack sufficient organic matter is more challenging. Rather than excavating this area down and adding more appropriate wetland topsoil, a more efficient way to address the deficiencies in this area would be to do supplemental plantings of species more adaptable to the soil conditions. I would recommend supplemental plantings within the red outlined area on the landscape plan attached. And he's recommending gray birch and red maple based on the existing soil conditions and the ability of these plants to do well in that kind of condition. So basically they would be going back to this. This area here is where they'd be proposing to put those trees in. The plan that was approved is mostly herbaceous plugs within the wetland creation area, and I think it was 20 or 30 pin oaks around the edge. So they would be taking this area and doing more of a treed, slightly upland type area. So the commission does have a 2-to-1 mitigation requirement whenever there's wetland filling greater than 750 square feet, in part because it's always harder to create wetlands than to maintain existing wetlands. So I think that there is some logic and room for the commission to be okay with this and not necessarily have 100% of the creation area having proper wetland hydrology. However, it's certainly not something I was willing to okay at the administrative level. So I just wanted to check with the commission. Are you okay with them enhancing that with more appropriate plants for what the current site conditions are? I think it would be a lot to have them come in with equipment, take out material, bring in material, and plant again with the plugs. So it's different than what was initially proposed, but they're trying to work with kind of what they've got at this point. And I think there's some rationale to follow that logic, because the amount of disturbance to put it to what was originally approved might be more disturbance than what would be ideal at this point.
Commissioner Basserman, I guess, do we still have as a permit condition 85% approval?
85% survival? Yeah.
Yeah, survival. I'm sorry.
So that's kind of where I think it gets tricky. So here's the survivorship. They have, at the time of the inspection, all of the pin oaks were doing fine, which are the tree species. And then the plugs, you can see they have either not identifiable before fruit. So in June, they weren't identifiable. They couldn't indicate what the survivorship was. And then you can see excellent survivorship on a handful of them and no survivorship on.
I guess what I'm getting at, Jamie, is your comment was you didn't want to administratively approve, something that was X% survivability without the commission kind of reviewing it. What do you think that percent survivorship will be with the proposed plan here?
So I think it changes the survivorship standard. So essentially what I would say is with the herbaceous vegetation, you're kind of looking at a 75% coverage kind of issue. And then with the transfer over to trees, you would then be looking at a hard number, 75 or 85% of however many trees there are. And then you would no longer be looking necessarily for that 85% survival. You wouldn't be looking for that 85% survival in the area where they're proposing to put the trees, because they're identifying that those plants that were initially proposed are not going to do well there. So essentially, my takeaway would be, going back to this, you'd be looking for 85% survival of trees that were planted around the mitigation area, and in this area identified as area of deficient soil and hydrology. And then in this remaining area where the wetland plugs are, you'd be looking for 85% survival of the wetland plugs.
Okay, so the conditions of the original permit still hold?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I would still be looking for 85% survival. It would just change what the plantings you'd be looking for 85% survival of is in certain locations.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna, so that, let's see, photo 1 is looking, you can see the arrow, it's looking towards this area of deficient hydrology. So you can you can see the pin oaks, and this is kind of getting at the point of having them come in, excavate that soil. They're gonna have to go past this area in the front where you can see that some of the plugs are doing really well and thriving. And they're also gonna have to get in through these pin oaks to remove all of that soil, bring in new soil, bring in new plugs, reestablish the plugs. It certainly would be within the commission's right to say, yes, nope, that's what we approved. That's what you need to do. And maybe one thing the commission decides, specifically, kind of following up with Chairman Basserman's comment, is to have that area of insufficient hydrology marked out on the site plan, so that way we know exactly what that area is and what areas we're looking to have that 85% herbaceous survival and what areas we're looking to have the woody survival.
I think unless we are specific, we'll run into problems if we get into a controversial who survived, what didn't survive, what should have survived.
Yes. This is a picture of the area that's not having sufficient hydrology, and you can see that it's very patchy.
Yeah,
right. Commissioner Finaro, is it part of the issue that it was just such a dry summer, and that if they...
So this was done in June. This was done in June. So what you're looking at is a couple months old. So they have not been back out, at least that I'm aware of, they have not been back out yet to do the second report. So this is report number 1 of 2 in the first year of monitoring. So we should be getting another report, I would say, sometime in the next couple of months. I think per their application materials, no later than December, but the field work should be done around the end of September, mid-October. So that way they're assessing at the end of the growing season, the survivability of everything, make recommendations. And usually what the things that the commission's looking for them to note on are invasive species management and survivability. So say they planted.
To Commissioner Finaro's point though, this is Commissioner Basserman, the summer that we had may have run havoc with what we saw in June versus what's out there now. And that might influence, how many additional trees or shrubs or whatever need to get put in going forward, because survivability may not be as good as what we're looking at in June.
Sure. So maybe the best way to proceed is I don't know that it's possible, but see if they can get that follow-up report done for submission at the October meeting, which would theoretically give them an opportunity to still plant
Yeah.
in October, anything that
Right,
needs to be
right.
planted before they go into the dormant season.
Yep.
And if not, then we could still have that report, hold off on making a decision, have them hold off on planting and have the plantings happen in the spring. But
Okay.
I think ideally it would be resolved. I guess it also depends on whether it's woody vegetation that they're doing or if they're doing plugs.
I
Right.
mean, Commissioner Finaro, it seems a lot to bring in soil. That seemed a little unnecessary to me.
But you also have a good point of the fact that they're basically at the point of doing the second report, so it might not be a bad idea to just have them submit the second report before making a concrete decision on whether or not the recommendation is the right way to proceed. And perhaps, you know, they go out there and they see the wetland, the area is larger, and then maybe we need to have a balance between because there needs to be at least, you know, some portion that meets what was proposed. I was hoping to get out there this week before the meeting, and unfortunately that fell off of my schedule and I have not been out there recently. I have been out there more recently than these photos, but I have not been out there for a little while out in the back to check on the mitigation.
So how do we wrap this one up? Items 1 and 2, I think nobody has an issue with the 2 items that you proposed. I didn't hear anything. Anybody got issues with those?
So just to clarify, these are the recommendations of Matt Davison, the soil scientist.
Right.
So number 1 is the invasive species should be control should be initiated. A plan for control should be developed and executed by a licensed pesticide applicator. Do you want to see that plan before it's implemented, or are you?
You should see it, but.
Okay, you're okay with that being reviewed by staff?
Yes.
Okay. And then as far as the creation area and replacing some of the herbaceous area with these trees, are you okay with that modification, or do you want to wait until you see the second report before you make a decision?
I guess I have concerns given Commissioner Finaro's comment, especially when we, you know, illustrate the number of gray birch and red maple. And as you point out, if the area is larger, that may change. So somewhere along the line, I think staff hopefully can review the report submitted for the October meeting and confirm or modify with the owner the number of trees and trees, I guess, that are being put in the creation area.
So if that follow-up report's not ready for the October meeting, but it would be ready for the November meeting, would it be correct to assume the commission doesn't want it on the agenda until the items are ready for review?
Yes, that good.
So we'll aim for October, but if not, we'll do November.
Right.
And we'll hold off for now on having them actually plant until we can see what it's like now, to make sure that there's no pertinent changes.
Yep.
All right. I'll follow up with the owner and keep the commission updated.
Thank you. Regulations, we had a little typo in the recent regulation revisions. You want to take the floor on this, Jamie?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So I was putting the revised application fees into our permitting software, and I realized that what I was getting for fees out of the software was not matching what I thought I should be getting. And essentially in the fees for residential uses, there is a typo. Over 200,000 square feet, the base fee should be 5,838 rather than the listed $5,058. So the issue with this typo is that essentially activities over 200,000 square feet are essentially getting a discount of $780, and that there's a range in, I think it's around 100 67 or 170 square feet to 200 square feet, that with this typo, it's actually cheaper to submit an application over 200,000 square feet. So generally what the concept is that 1,001 square feet to 5,000 square feet is a base fee of 250 with an additional $16 assessed for each 500,000 square feet over the initial 1,000 square feet. And then for 5,001 to 2,000 square feet, it's a base fee of 378, which is what 5,000 square feet calculates out to be based off of this previous line item. So with that logic, over 2,000 square feet should be what 200,000 calculates out to be with the subject line item, which is the $5,838 rather than 5,058. So to resolve this and hopefully get it corrected before we have any relevant applications, staff is recommending that we do this minor modification. It has to go through the formal regulation process. We have to send it up to DEEP, notice it in the paper, have a public hearing. So the recommendation would be that the public hearing would be scheduled for the November 10th meeting, since we have to send it to DEEP at least 35 days prior. And we would just have to send this one regulation revision with an indication that it's a typo to DEEP from the previous regulation revision. I reached out to Darcy when they're up at DEEP about that.
So the regulations that we recently went through are in fact in place?
Correct. They became effective August 12th.
Yeah, so this does not change that.
Correct. So the 558 is the current regulation.
Right.
And staff is recommending that it be corrected to 5,838, which is also consistent with the way that the fee is calculated for commercial and other uses.
You need a vote on this or not?
I think I just,
No.
I think general consensus that the commission wants to move forward with the regulation revision. If there's any questions or concerns the commission has, otherwise we'll send it up to DEEP and get the public hearing noticed for November, and the commission can make a motion then. No
Sounds good.
issues?
No.
All right, so we'll send that up to DEEP and schedule it for November.
Sounds good. The application form, which is a revised application form, which shows how the fields were calculated. We have a new one.
Yeah, so this is, I'm sorry to do this to you. It's a very minor change on the fee page of the application form. I just added, if greater than 1,000 square feet, round to the nearest 500 square feet for that fee we were just talking about, to try and help prevent getting fractions thereof that are not consistent with the regulation. The regulation does state to round to the nearest 500 square feet over 1,000 square feet. We just didn't put on the application form. So it provides the applicant that information on the subject application form, and it prevents us from getting the wrong application submitted or having to tell them, well, I'm sorry, you were supposed to round to 500 square feet. You owe us this, or we owe you that. Does the commission want to see it real quick, or
not?
Or are they okay with that change? We do need a motion that is the process for changing the application fee per the regulations.
I make a motion that it's Commissioner Basserman. I make a motion that we change the application form to round up to the next 500. Is that what it's?
If greater than 1,000 square feet, round to the nearest 500 square feet, added to line item 1 on page 3 of the application.
What she said.
Commissioner Papantona, second.
Is there, okay. Any further discussion? Commissioner Papatonis?
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Begeman?
Commissioner Begeman, aye.
Commissioner Finaro?
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. Okay, you got an agent approval, which we talked about.
This actually was not brought to the commission previously. However, there was a violation for 32 Penn Road, so the commission is somewhat familiar with the property. There's an existing shed on the site that is immediately adjacent to the wetland. They're looking to replace it with a larger shed, but put it in a location further away from the wetland. So I took the compromise and reviewed it administratively, as it should have less impact on the wetland. As part of the replacement, they do propose to remove the shed that is immediately adjacent to the wetland.
Yep. And last
Correspondence and announcements, we obviously copied it from the August meeting because this is the September meeting. We do not have more information because there hasn't been more information. However, there is a link to the Kakiwik website in the Dropbox should any of the commissioners want to follow up on it. And we will send out an email when we become aware that there is more information. I believe that the date is October, yeah, it's right here, October 29th.
Yeah, this is the first in-person meeting in a couple years. The last couple years have been virtual meetings. This is the 50th anniversary of the Wetland Act in Connecticut. So there's a keynote address and a variety of subjects that'll be posted on the Kakiwik website, which is caciwc.org. Generally, they start at around 8:30. It's on a Saturday. Lunch is provided. Rounds up about 2. It's going to be in North Haven at what used to be the was it Ramada Inn on exit 12, and I think somebody else owns it now other than Ramada, but that's where it's going to be. Subject they talk about wetland science as well as regulations, laws that were changed in the legislature that might affect us, etc. So it's a good way to spend a Saturday morning.
Okay. Thanks.
Anything else, Jamie?
That's all that we've got on the agenda.
Thank you for hanging in. It's 10:10. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Commissioner Begemon, make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Way to go. A second?
Commissioner Papantonis, second.
We can get that out fast enough, huh? Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night, all.
Night, everyone.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at branfordtv.org. This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at branfordtv.org.